supervisor of Albany FBI Squad 6. This one comes from Ithaca Resident Agency, Binghamton Resident Agency, and also Kingston Resident Agency, which is sort of over there on the other side of the state. So who put it together, I don't know. This is the way it was when I got here. I'd like to, first of all, welcome everybody. We're here to have a presentation by the Muslims of Americas. To my left is Muhammad Asif Abdul Haq. He is the president of the Muslims of Americas Incorporated and also their national spokesman. This all came about really, again, as with many things done in the country, after September 11th. The day after that event, Captain, thank you. Captain Tom Kelly and I got together and spoke and called the Muslims of Americas and asked for a meeting. And we met September 12th in the afternoon. The purpose was twofold. After the after the Oklahoma City bombing, of course, there was immediate backlash in the Muslim community. And it didn't take very long for law enforcement to find out that Muslims had nothing to do with it. The one we feared the same kind of backlash, possibly. The difference in this case, it didn't take us very long to find out that there were Muslims involved. But one was to have a point of contact in case there was a backlash to the community, since they are one of the largest Muslim communities in the area. The second was not knowing who was involved, as did the FBI and a lot of, probably all field officers, reach out to groups, either Muslim and even non-Muslim, so there'd be a point of contact in case beads started coming in. And we all knew they would be. Many beads. Some would fall from the pan out. So we didn't have, unfortunately, at that time, this one-on-one dialogue and contact with the Muslims of Americas, though over the years there have been sporadic contact. As a result of that initial discussion, we continued to talk and we continued to meet. We were introduced to Mr. Haq, who is the national spokesman, and I guess we've had half a dozen, 6 or 7 meetings since then. The Muslims of Americas has had a controversial background, I'm sure many of you know, and the reason many of you are here. They see themselves, especially after 9/11, as in a fishbowl, and for a number of reasons. One, for incidents that have taken place in the past, because of the Muslim involvement in the 9/11, and because of the lifestyles. They decided to live in a have communities around the country, apart from society, in rural areas, and practice Islam and protect their kids, hopefully protect the kids from the ills of the big city. They would like not to be in a fishbowl. They would like law enforcement not to see them as a Islamic fundamentalism threat in these small communities. So that's been the discussions we've had with them. We've been frank and open. We've had law enforcement issues. We have issues related to terrorism matters that some will go back many years. It was a suggestion on MOA's part that we have a meeting with all law enforcement, asked if we could be the catalyst to get that together, and I thought there would be an interest to it. So instead of, as happens sometimes in these situations where the FBI talks to groups and talks to people and gets the information, puts it in a report, classifies it, puts it in a file, never to see the light of day again. We thought we'd give everyone in the area here an opportunity to have a presentation from the Muslims of America themselves to address any issues and concerns. We'd give them a list of questions we'd like to see addressed. And the real goal here, I think, is to sort of we're all on the same level playing field here. And these are things I've said to Steve. Out of hundreds of thousands of leads in the Pentagon investigation throughout the country, none have come back linked, to my knowledge. I'm just in things not here, but I'm sure if there was one, we know about it. None have come back linked to Muslims of America. There's been a lot in the paper about their sheikh that they follow in Pakistan. And that's another reason they're invisible, because of the association with Pakistan and everything's going on there, of course. And no one's at fault. It's a natural, I think, development of that. But the newspaper reports regarding the Shubham Reed reports out of Boston Globe that there were links to the MOA, that Reed had some kind of link to the MOA. Also, Daniel Pearl, that was kidnapped and killed, reports that Chief Jelani had something to do with that. It's been in the paper, and you know, it's simply not true. And we know that is a fact. So we have no control of the newspapers and what they print. We are working on a statement that we'd like to see put out. It's down at headquarters waiting for approval. We don't know if it will be approved or not, but we're certainly working on it to let the public know that the FBI and law enforcement are in negotiations, are talking to MOA, and the whole point of that is to ensure the communities that live around the MOA who are reading this kind of stuff in the paper, not seeing anything to refute it, and in some cases, in some of the communities, we have locals that are now driving by their villages with shotguns hanging out the windows and that kind of thing. So this all raises the paranoia of the citizens, which then raises the paranoia of members in the MOA community, and nothing good can come of that. So hopefully, we'll learn from each other, get some questions answered if anybody has any. We're going to have a presentation, and then open it up for questions that anybody might have. And if there are follow-up questions, we can present them to the MOA, and they can get back to us either individually or through us. I'd like to turn this over first to my special agent in charge, Louis Allen. I'd like just to say a couple words of welcome, and then we'll get to the presentation. Also, there's some refreshments and stuff, and don't be afraid. Anytime if you feel hungry, please help yourself.
Thanks, Steve. I'd like to echo Steve's welcome. Thank everybody for coming. Steve and Captain Kelly have worked tirelessly for the last 4 or 5 months, opening the dialogue with the members of the Muslims of America. And I think it's been fruitful for law enforcement in this area. And I only ask that we can meet and talk, and maybe we can clear the air and certain things that we said that will give everybody a better understanding where we're coming from, where they're coming from, and their concerns. You know, I know the goal with law enforcement, our job is to protect the public and the citizens that we serve. And I believe that's our #1 priority. In the FBI, our #1 priority right now is preventing another terrorist act. So, you know, this all kind of falls in tune with what's being expected of us in the FBI, but we're only as good as our partners out here, and we have to work with everybody, and anything that we have and things that we're doing will come down this area, will come through Steve, and we'll work with Steve and our law enforcement partners down here. So thanks for coming, and we'll proceed on, Steve.
Thank you, Louis. Just one more thing. One of the issues that part of the discussion we had is I explained to Steve and the members of MOA to talk to that, you know, our responsibility, not only the FBI, but now all law enforcement, and has been in the past, not to investigate crime, but to ensure there's no entity out here that's a credible threat to the citizenry. And at the same time, that people in the communities aren't a threat to particular groups because of their beliefs and whatever. So we have a mutual interest in resolving these issues with the Muslims of America as we would with any group. And I know, for instance, the Jewish organization, there's escapes me the name, but there's a group that handles like security for the synagogues and meet with law enforcement, and the Muslims don't have anything like that, to my knowledge. we've been talking with them on anything, possibly setting that up with them, so that we have that kind of communication point. So there's issues with the mosques that's addressed. And it's either been overlooked, either on our part or their part, or it just hasn't happened, and no one's seen the need for it. But, you know, now is the week. And the only other thing is, Steve just promised me this is not going to be a sermon. However, I've asked him to leave a stack of crayons outside the door, so if the Spirit moves anybody, they'll copy on the way out. So, with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. C. Mr. Hawk. Sorry, and thank you.
If it's all right with those that are here, I would prefer to sit down and not stand over you, if that's okay. If you can hear me, that's very important. First of all, you saw me pass a little paper around, and I don't want to do anything that might cause anybody to have any questions whatsoever, but we're a religious organization, number one. And before we do anything, we like to call on the Almighty, you know, to help us in our venture. This is not a missionary speech or anything like that, but I'd just like you to get an idea of where I'm coming from, and maybe that will relax you and enable you to understand a little bit more about what we're about, because we can list a lot of things on the board, but it will be very dry, and it might not bring about the understanding that we would like to, you know, to present to you. We would like you to understand where it is that we are coming from as an organization, as Muslims, as Americans, and largely as African Americans. We would like you to understand what our issues are, and once you understand what our issues are, then maybe we could better work together, you know, to bring about a more stable society. Well, first, this particular prayer, it's a short prayer, and I'll just say it, and I don't know what, you know, your religious persuasion is, but just try to bear with me just for a moment, and then I'll stay away from religious issues other than when it pertains to our position dealing with certain things. Okay? And the prayer is, my Lord, expand my breasts, ease my task for me, and remove the impediment from my speech, so that they may understand what I say, for thou art ever seen. So I utilize this to keep in mind that whatever is accomplished here today is accomplished because of the grace of the Almighty Creator, the one Creator of the heavens and the earth. And I just try to keep that in mind, and that helps me because I've never sat before an audience made up of law enforcement like this. And I've never done this before. Of course, I have my notions of preconceived ideas about law enforcement, you know, that I guess I have developed over the years, experience. I never had the experience of being in one of your stations or in one of your cells or holding tanks or being interrogated or anything like that. You know, I wasn't even a juvenile delinquent. So for me to sit in front of you now, basically, my precepts or perception of law enforcement comes from what I've read in the newspapers as well. It comes from what I see on TV, which I don't watch any longer. But, you know, preconceived ideas coming from an African-American family, a middle-class family at that, but living in neighborhoods wherein I've seen law enforcement interact, you know, in some ways that are not always favorable, or some ways that I didn't necessarily understand. So I'm trying to take that and put that behind me because I think there's a greater reason for us being here right now. No doubt we're talking about the security of the United States of the Americas. I say Americas, I'm used to say Muslims of the Americas, but the United States of America, which is my nation, my country. It's where I was raised, where my family is raised. I benefited greatly from the Constitution of the United States. As I start many of my speeches, and I hope I'm not hitting on any sensitivities, but at one time my ancestors were brought here, as is common knowledge. As I was growing up, I heard the N-word, which we won't repeat at this time. And we moved from the N-word to the colored, and we moved from colored to Negro, and then we said Afro-American or African-American, and then I became a Muslim. So I became a Muslim who happened to be African-American. And for each stage of development that I've gone through, or that we've gone through, it's brought about different circumstances, different situations, some not so pleasant. What we want to do here today is for you to recognize the fact that I'm Muslim, the fact that I'm African American, does not mean in any way that I'm a threat to the security of the United States of America, or that my organization or my sheikh, even more important, so that my sheikh is a threat to the security of the United States of America in any way. That's the purpose of me being here. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be here. My sheikh, Imam al-Sheikh Mubarak al-Shah Jalani al-Hashmi al-Hassani al-Husseini, in reality is the individual that took most of us from concepts raw concepts that were developed through civil rights era, the nationalism era, or the era where African ancestry, so forth and so on. He took us from that era of maybe where we were harboring some bitterness towards the establishment, I'll put it that way, not racist, but just bitterness towards the establishment that had neglected us for so long. He took us from that station. He took us from the station where we were basically self-taught, self-motivated, very zealous, but somewhat ignorant of what Islam is all about. He took us from that station, and he told us that this was our home. This ancestors had a lot to do with building it, and that we should become an integral part of its development. This is what he taught us. So when we read in the newspaper, all of a sudden that he's a threat to the United States, then that's real hurting to me, and that's something that we don't understand. And it's obvious that most people don't know the man, because this is the most dynamic Islamic personality to ever grace the shores of the United States of America. Of course, that's my opinion, but I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe that he actually saved the United States from this type of confrontation that maybe is being alluded to in the newspapers. He actually did it, because back then, we didn't have such a grasp on what was right or wrong. We didn't have that. We didn't look upon ourselves so much so as being American citizens, or that the Constitution was for us, or where it says that all men are created equal, meant us. We looked upon it as the fact that, first of all, I'm African American, and in this society, in many places, that's one strike against me. All right? And then the second strike is that I became a Muslim. So I had two strikes against me, and that's the way I was looking at it. But when El Sheikh came, one of the things that he said that he would do, and he has done, he said, I will show you how you can practice the most Islam, the most possible Islam in this country. That's what I will show you, and that's what he's done. We have moved from that skepticism to believing that we can have an impact, and we think that we have had an impact. We have 4 generations in MOA, 4 generations. My father was a Baptist minister. He became a Muslim. My 81-year-old mother is a Muslim right now. And we have other situations like that all over the country. And what we have tried to do to raise our children to do is to become contributors to American society in the best of ways, educating them secularly and religiously to show what it is that their responsibility is as citizens of the United States. In the course of that, and I'm running all away from this, by the way, but in the course of that, we have found ourselves propelled into, as Steve Benjamin said, we were propelled into the limelight. First it happened back, I would say, with the first World Trade Center, where there was an African American that was convicted of being a part of that plot, and he was an African American, and he was from Brooklyn. So automatically, the papers, particularly the New York papers, automatically said that he is part of MOA. He is a follower of Giovanni. I guess because he was African American and because he was in Brooklyn. And the headquarters of our organization for some years was in Brooklyn, so automatically they tied it into that. And we found ourselves in a position dealing more with the newspapers than we were with law enforcement. And that was that the newspaper could print anything that they wanted about us. People would read it religiously, and then we would have to spend the rest of our lives proving that it wasn't true. We didn't have the money to do that. We got tired of doing that. Okay? So here we are today. We find ourselves in a similar situation. The media is taking the lead. Even so, and there's no way that we can tell if this is true or not, but only we go by what we read, where certain organizations have come out, sent letters and delegations to law enforcement and said that these people are terrorists. You should check them out. The way we look at it now is that all law enforcement, this is the United States of America. It's supposed to be a melting pot. All law enforcement has to protect its citizens, which means that we look to you to protect us as well. Okay? We look to you, I don't know the ages of everyone here, but some of you remember Dragnet, I'm sure, and Sergeant Friday. And Sergeant Friday was a man who took care of serious business. He was sort of like my hero, by the way, and one of the heroes, all right? And I would watch him, and he would say, just the facts, man, just the facts. You understand? And that's what we're looking for from law enforcement. We want the facts. Law enforcement has to, this is my definition, all right? I'm not saying that I read it anywhere, but this is the way I'm feeling. Law enforcement has to remain objective. They have to remain objective and deal with the facts. They're not a political organization. It's not a political organization. It's not a political profession. It's a profession that deals with just the facts. So if you want to know the facts about MOA, then you should come to MOA. You should be motivated by security or providing security for the United States and all the citizens of the United States and all the interests of the United States. All the interests. That includes the African American that happens to be Muslim. Okay? So that's what I'm looking for from you. Of course, you're looking for a lot of things from me, probably a whole lot of questions, so forth and so on. But that's what I'm looking for. So, again, just to reiterate, the purpose is to clear the name of my sheikh, because that's most important to me. You know, he should be able, like any other individual, he should have, I won't say the dream, but he should be able to walk on the same streets that all of us walk on. You know, he should not have to stay there. This is my sheikh, this is my religious leader. I would like to see him. I would like to see him here. I would like to see him manifesting what he has to contribute to American society, just like anyone else. And because of what the misnomers and those things that have been put in the press, so forth and so on, I don't feel safe with him being here. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. So that's what my purpose is, and to remove the stigma about who MOA is, who MOA members are, what we propagate, so forth and so on. I'll try to do it in the shortest manner possible. I'm quite long-winded. I talk a lot, but I felt that I had to say that just to set the groundwork, and I hope you bear with me for that. First of all, going back, and I like to say I have some points here. I'll go from as quickly as possible. This is, as I said, this is not. We're not trying to make converts to Islam, so that's not what it's about. But if you go back into the 60s, the mid-60s, you'll find that that's when Islam basically came into the knowledge and the forefront of American society. On two levels that took place. One level was the immigrants that were coming in from the Islamic countries. They were coming here as professionals, doctors, professors, so forth and so on. And you found that on most of the major colleges in the United States, you would find Muslims. And because the Muslims were there and they were exchange students as well, you found that they began organizations so that they would be able to, you know, pray and have prayer gatherings, so forth and so on. Muslim Students Association usually is what they went by. And you had that group that were coming in. And then you have the followers of Elijah Muhammad, which we were referred to for so many years, even though we had no connection with them whatsoever. And that was the black Muslims. There's no such thing as a black Muslim. There's only a Muslim. There's only a Muslim. You can only be a Muslim. You can't be a black Muslim, an Asian Muslim. You're a Muslim. You might have come from a particular country, so forth and so on. But when it comes to your religion, you're a Muslim, period. Whether you're black, white, purple, green, or blue. Okay. So what happened is Elijah Muhammad, he came and he took some precepts of Islam. He took some Arabic terminology, so forth and so on, and he projected himself as a prophet of God. Again, going to this point in our religious belief, just for the purpose of understanding, we believe that the Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah, born over 1,400 years ago, that he is the last prophet of the Almighty Creator of the heavens and the earth. Okay, that there are no prophets to come after him. So if in your investigating of something you run across a black Muslim, or you run across a 5%er, which is very prevalent in some of the major cities, are those that profess to be Allah. They all use that term, which is blasphemy as far as we're concerned. But nevertheless, they are not Muslim in terms of the actual orthodox tenets of Islam. Okay, in some of the things that you might read, you might say that MOA is bent on purifying the ranks of Islam through violence. That is not true whatsoever. The purpose of Shah coming, or Al-Sheikh coming, was one, he's a therapist. He's involved in Quranic therapy, which you would call an ancient science, which is the use of the Holy Quran and particular chants or verses or what we call dhikr, you know, to cure certain diseases which are mental, physical, and spiritual. That is what his purpose was in coming, his original purpose, and that was back in 79, 80. During that, and I'm going right into the history, when he came, he was going to meet some Muslims that he had some connections with or were aware of him and had invited him in New Jersey. And those Muslims had some relationships with us. And they said, well, we have a sheikh coming. You know, he's a great sheikh. That's what they refer to him. He's a great sheikh. He's a sheikh of dhikr. Dhikr is the chanting, you know. And they said that he's very near to the Almighty Creator. Would you like to meet him? And to make a long story short, there were some that did. And at that time, they went. And they were members of Darul Islam at that time. But nevertheless, they went. And they met Sheikh, and they were impressed with him, and they were touched by him, and they had never met anybody like that before. So they came back to Darul Islam, which was headquartered in New York, and they told us about this great Sheikh, and some of us had the opportunity to meet him at that time. Now, let me just regress a little bit. Darul Islam came out of those, you might say, out of the mid-60s. when it was found that in many cases the foreign Muslims did not understand the plight of those who had just converted to Islam, that basically African American. They did not understand the plight. They came here for a different reason. They came, excuse me, some of them came, to establish themselves, to establish their careers, to be educated, etc., etc. We were here, we were indigent, and they did not understand all that they went through. If we explained something to them about harassment or about prejudice or bias, they would not understand that. We felt during that period of time in particular that we could practice the Holy Quran, which is our book of guidance, and the traditions of the Holy Prophet, which I just spoke about born over 1,400 years ago, that we could practice those tenets. We could practice Islam in letter and spirit right here in this country. We didn't have to compromise. Many of the foreigners that came, they did compromise, as I'm sure you're aware, and we weren't willing to do that. So we went off to ourselves and we tried to establish an organization. We had no formal teaching when it came to the tenets of Islam. We would pick up a book or find a book here, we would read it, we would try to apply it. There was a lot of things that we missed in doing so. And also one of the things that happened was that people from all over, all walks of life, were attracted to Islam. It wasn't just those that were in the prisons. There were people on the college campuses. There were people that were middle class. There were lower class. There were upper class. It came from a broad spectrum of American society. Now, when they came to the mosque, we did not, you understand, we did not ask for a background check. That's not the way Islam is. Islam is that if one of you were to, and when I spoke to Steve when we first sat down, that if, and I used him as an example, if he were to take Shahada, which is the oath of Islam, then he would be welcomed into our society. He could come, he could pray, we would feed him, we would give him hospitality. We would not do a background check on him. He did not have to fill out a form or anything of that nature. And as we were growing up, we said, well, we owe him at least 3 days. And the traditions, that we read for ourselves, which is not necessarily, our understanding wasn't necessarily what it was supposed to be, but we would give them at least 3 days, 3 days of hospitality. And then, we would encourage them to move on or to find out what their purpose in being there was, so forth and so on. But we never did these background checks. Darul Islam was probably the most publicized Islamic organization at that time of converts to Orthodox Islam, not to the black Muslims, but to Orthodox Islam. And because of that, Muslims from all over the country, mostly converts to Islam, would come to Darul Islam. They would come to Yasin Mosque. They would come there and they would ask us, how do you do this? How do you become incorporated? How do you open a school? Because these are things that we had. How do you grow a beard? Because back then you couldn't even grow a beard in many places. You couldn't even take off for Juma, which is the Friday prayer. You get fired. If they caught you praying in some place, even if it was on your break, they would fire you. I mean, you just name it. The ladies couldn't wear their scarves. They couldn't wear their overgarments. Automatically this was not done. You couldn't work for United Parcel, because you had a beard. I think in law enforcement at that time, I remember in New York City, some of the officers wanted to grow a beard, and they couldn't even do it at that time as well. So, well, nevertheless, we knew how to handle those situations through the law. We had a lawyer, his name is Francis Dorn. Since then he has expired, but he was a former congressman. And he saw what our plight was. And he did our legal work for us. He's the one who told us how to handle certain situations, so forth and so on. So we had this. So we wound up being a catalyst for Islam basically all over the United States. If you go to any major city and you speak to somebody who's around 20, 30 years ago, 9 times out of 10 they'll tell you something about Darul Islam. They'll tell you something about Yasin Mosque, which was the mosque that we performed our religious service at. Most, when you go back, into the history of Islam in America, you'll find that Darul Islam or Yasin Mosque had a lot to do with it. But since we were self-taught, there were a lot of things that we didn't know, we didn't understand. We fashioned ourselves as some type of revolutionary. We weren't going out blowing up anything or doing anything like that. But that we were coming out of the 60s. We were coming out of an era, they call it an era of enlightenment, but it wasn't always enlightening for everyone. Okay, so when Sheikh came, this is what he was faced with. He was faced with people who came from all types of backgrounds, some criminal and some not criminal. Okay, and what he did was he began to educate us right away, telling us, look, what you're doing is not Islam. If it was something that was foreign to Islam, he would tell us. And when he started doing these things, some people did feel uncomfortable about it. They did. First of all, we weren't in a situation, we weren't used to a situation where we were told to do a particular thing. And we had to do it. In order to remain around this blessed person, we had to do it. We weren't in that situation before. Basically, people did what they wanted to do. They came and went as they liked. Whatever their pursuits were their pursuits. If somebody was doing something, you said, well, that's his business. But when Sheikh came, he said, you can't do that, because this is blasphemy against Islam. This is bringing a bad name to Islam. By the way, our Sheikh is a member of the blessed family of the Holy Last Rasul, which is Prophet Muhammad, that was born over 1,400 years ago. He's a direct descendant. He's also a Jalani, which is also referring to a family, a very noble family, which is the family of the Gaus al-Azam, which is the pole star of all saints, or Sufis, as you would call them, Islamic saints. So his demeanor, his nobility, his honor, his integrity, the way he carries himself is far beyond what you probably have seen, or I wouldn't say seen. I would say that you would realize, unless you had actually had the opportunity to meet, to meet this blessed person. So he was not going to stand for certain things around him. So there were certain people, which was a minority, who separated themselves. They separated themselves because they didn't want the discipline, and the discipline was there, no doubt. So they separated themselves. They liked a lot of things that he was doing, but they weren't ready to practice Islam in its pristine purity. Remember, a lot of people became Muslim because they had problems that they wanted to solve, not recognizing that Islam has its own agenda. So once they found out that Islam had its own agenda and that they couldn't just formulate it to fit, what they wanted, whether they were nationalists or whether they were criminal or whatever it was that they were, they recognized that you cannot shape and mold Islam to fit your own needs or your own desires. So they backed off and they started other organizations and they did whatever they did. Now, after Shah Sahib came, and I refer to him as Shah Sahib, but after El Sheikh Jilani came, one of the things that he did was he dispelled this myth of the black Muslims and Elijah Muhammad about that the white man is the devil, that there's a such thing as a black Muslim. He removed all of that and said this is one of the things that has crept into Islam and polluted it. So he removed all of that, and he told us emphatically that we were part of an international brotherhood, where one Muslim can go to any part of the world, and the manner in which he prays, the manner in which he sleeps, the manner in which he eats, the manner in which he studies, the manner in which he takes a bath, the manner in which if someone expires that they are, returned to the earth. All of that is the same for Muslims regardless of where they are, whether it be Europe, Asia, Africa, Central, North America, it doesn't make a difference. Wherever a Muslim is, the creed is such that a Muslim will feel comfortable wherever he goes. It has nothing to do with color, it has nothing to do with social background, economic position. It has nothing to do with anything other than the fact that you believe that there's only one creator who is Allah, and that you believe that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the last of the prophets. You make no distinction amongst the prophets. We all go back to Adam. We believe in the Immaculate Conception, so forth, so not to go any further than that. But nevertheless, these are the things that he taught us. During the course of things, we found that we had to identify. He told us emphatically that we are citizens of the United States, and that everything that any citizen of the United States benefits from, that we too should benefit from that. That we are included in that, and maybe have a better right to it because we were brought here not by our own will. We weren't brought here because we were looking for a better life. We were brought here and we were forced to stay here. But since we are here and that we have used our sweat and blood, to establish this country and this nation, then we should be privileged as anyone else is to whatever it has to offer us. So in the course of that, we were talking about the name of our organization, and we said that we were Muslims, and at that time, Muslims were coming from as far away as Canada, the Caribbean, South America in particular. They were coming to visit when Shah Sahib came. One of the things that attracted him, besides this noble personality and the fact that we were speaking about him to people that we had contact with, which were from Canada all the way down to the Caribbean and South America, we told them about him, and they were all eager to meet him. So many of them came then. And at the same time, he did something else. In telling us that we were part of the international community, he also told us that we had a responsibility that when any Muslim finds himself troubled, whether it be physically, mentally, or spiritually, then we should be there with whatever resources that we have, to aid them and to assist them. They are Muslim brothers. So at that time that he had come was at the height of the Afghan campaign, or you call it the Afghan war, where Russia had invaded the sovereign nation of Afghanistan. And up until him coming, we read about it, but we didn't feel like we had anything really to do with it because we still had nationalist overtones. We weren't, consider ourselves black, but we had nationalist overtones. and we felt that we had to deal with our problems here in the United States more so than we had to deal with them anywhere else. But nevertheless, going to the Holy Quran and the traditions and history of Islam, he was able to show us, without any doubt, that we had a responsibility to help our brothers and sisters wherever they be. So he, and this is where we came into, you might say, the national or maybe even international limelight at this point, because prior to that we were just dealing with local issues, local states, local cities, so forth and so on. But all of a sudden we were propelled into the international arena because we were saying that the United States, the champions of democracy, freedom, and justice, should do something about what's going on in Afghanistan, because this is a sovereign nation, and at that time Russia was our enemy. Russia was our enemy. They called it the Cold War, but everybody knew Russia was the enemy. We couldn't understand, after looking over things, we couldn't understand why America did not take a more definitive step in protecting, the lives of innocent Muslim men, women, and children. As it was called, just didn't have any problem, you understand, just crushing and killing men, women, and children, or booby-trapped toys and things of this sort, and simply because these individuals did not want to succumb, to the barbarians, or the hordes, or whatever you want to call them. So we felt that we had to do something. Mind you, whatever it was that we did was not covert at all. This is a very important factor, and I want you to reflect on that. We decided that we were going to send a delegation. We're going to send a delegation to Afghanistan to aid our brothers and sisters in any way that we possibly could. We started announcing that, and as a result of announcing that in our intentions, more Muslims from other organizations that really weren't even a part of us, they began to become enlightened as to what was going on and felt the responsibility to come forth. So they rallied around, in the thousands, they rallied around Sheikh Jilani and were willing, they signed up, as you say, we had a little sheet, an information sheet, they signed up to say that whatever was necessary, if it was necessary for them to go, they would go. Some said that they couldn't go, but they would lend their resources or their expertise to make sure that something was done. Because the United States at that time had not really done anything. Everything the United States was doing is history now was covert. But we said, why do you have to be covert? If this is the enemy of democracy, communism is the enemy of democracy, then step forth. And to do that, we took all of our paperwork, our documents, so forth and so on, and we hand-delivered, and at that time they were using telex machines. We hand-delivered them and sent telex messages to the President of the United States, to the State Department. I believe it even went to the Secretary of State, it went to it, and no doubt, and it went directly to the President. Every step that we took, every time we had a meeting, every time we came up with a procedure or something that we wanted to do, we came to law enforcement at the highest level. And we have copies of all of this, to prove it. It's not something that I'm just saying off the top of my head to make things seem better than they are. But this is the way we function, and this is what the Sheikh had taught us, that when you're doing something, then you can be upright about it. When you're doing something for freedom, democracy, and justice, then there's no reason to be in the closet. So we were never in the closet. We did everything the way we were supposed to do. We got our visas, whatever, and we went. We were not allowed, we were not allowed to engage the Russians. If the opportunity had come, only Allah knows what would have happened. Training for this, basic military training, I was one of the delegation. I have never had any military training in my life. I'm not proud of that because some of the stuff is real good, you understand? But I never had it. I was never trained to do anything other than to go forth with truth. And that's what I went forth with, and with the majority of the people that went forth with me, that's what we went forth with. 12 of us went forth, and 12 of us represented at least 1,000. And that's the way the delegation was done. We went forth, we stayed for about a month. We met with people and tried to express the concern that American Muslims had for our brothers in Afghanistan. We did not engage the enemy. We stayed for a month. We met people. We talked, and we came back. And when we came back, we publicized the plight of what was going on in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And while we were there, we were able to assist the Afghan refugees, which was something that you would have to see. And I guess most of you are veterans, and I don't know, maybe some of you were in Vietnam or Asia or maybe the Korean War, or even, I don't think World War II. But nevertheless, you've seen situations where we sat on the side of the road and we had something to eat. And when we finished, we had to lift the bowl clean. And we put the bowl down, and before we could get 10 steps away, women dressed in rags and children, with nothing on their backs, running to see if they could just get a morsel of food. This is what we saw. This is the thing that motivated us to come back and speak on the plight. And ever since then, wherever there's been an issue dealing with Muslims, anywhere in the world where this type of thing takes place, then we are there to lend whatever support, even if it's just to publicize the play. Okay? So, at that point where we began to get involved in the international arena and to expose the conspiracies against Islam, al-Islam. There appears to be a conspiracy against al-Islam. It's not a figment of our imagination. If you look at a map, or sometimes Soldier of Fortune has maps, in the middle, and it shows what's going on throughout the world. If you go through there, you'll see almost everywhere there are Muslims, you'll find that somebody is attacking them, whether it is people from their homeland or whether it's an outside force. Nowhere in the world is one religious body being attacked the way Muslims are. No way in the world. We looked for a lot of things. We looked at what took place in Yugoslavia. What took place in Yugoslavia was important on two levels. One is people began to realize that all Muslims are armed from Africa or the Middle East. We found out that there's a lot of Muslims in Europe. Nevertheless, even though they were Muslim and they had skin, white skin or light skin, they found that when it came time for a ceasefire, it was told to put down your weapons. And this is history again. This is not something that I'm coming up with. You find out that the Muslims put down their weapons. You find out that it was the UN peacekeeping force that was supposed to protect them. But you find out that the Serbs continued to slaughter them in Sarajevo. Every day in the paper you would read how the snipers were set up. The weapons from Muslim countries were stopped from going in to help the Bosnian Muslims. But you will find out that weapons still came from Russia. Weapons were still allowed to come from Russia. And the UN forces would just stand there and say, well, we can't fire, we're not, we haven't been given permission to fire our weapons, but nevertheless, the Muslims were not allowed to protect themselves. This is all history, okay? Well, anyway, moving on. Dealing with the membership. As a result of us going into the international arena, and publicizing the plight of Muslims all over the world, like I said, we began to get attacked in the newspapers, particularly in the newspapers, not so much from law enforcement, but from the newspapers in particular. They said, these individuals are terrorists. They're this, they're that. They're a threat to the United States. Like I said, even this African-American that was arrested with the World Trade Center, automatically he was placed to be amongst us. Now, when Shasta first came, as I mentioned earlier, the education was very important. He did many lectures. He wrote many books. And we developed an audio-visual department, a media department, wherein his cassettes were all over the country. They went all over the country. They went to Canada. They went to the Caribbean. You name it. Individuals during this Afghan situation, many of them were able to come. They were able to come, and they would either, if they were fortunate, and most of them weren't so fortunate that they could meet Sheikh, they would meet somebody that he had placed there, to get information from them, so forth and so on. The tapes and the audio and video cassettes, the books and whatnot, they went like wildfire. We had a publication, Islamic Chronicle, that also went like wildfire. Anything that we had, people just scooped up. Individuals who had never met Sheikh, because of the position that he took, for the first time, African Americans, largely African Americans, were linked with someone with a dynamic personality and character that was recognized all over the Islamic world. For the first time, we met someone that didn't want something from us, but didn't want to subjugate us, didn't want to enslave us or colonialize us, someone who just wanted to help improve our situation. And people were very excited about that. As a result, we had individuals who came as close as they could to him and became an active part of the Muslims of the Americas. And then we had those that were standoffish still because they couldn't deal with the discipline. It wasn't that they didn't believe in his mission and what he was doing, but the discipline. They weren't ready, to practice Islam in letter and spirit. Some of them moved they were already in different parts of the country, and some of them moved to other parts of the country. And those individuals, if you were to meet them now, I might not have seen them, and I've been around this since day one. I might not have seen them in 20 years. I might not have seen them in 15 years. I might not have seen them in 30 years. I've been around 35, so I might not have seen them, in years upon years. If you were to meet these people, regardless of where they were, they might tell you, you ask them, well, who's your leader? Who's your sheikh? And they'll say, well, Sheikh Jelani is my leader. And you say, Sheikh Jelani is your leader? They say, yeah, and they'll be emphatic about it. They'll be emphatic about it without ever having even seen him, heard his voice, other than maybe on an audio cassette or reading one of his books. Because the relationship that an individual has with his sheikh or his religious leader is something that he does not have to be in his physical presence to have. He does not have to be in his physical presence. He just has to acknowledge before the Almighty Creator, whether he says it in prayer, or he makes a statement, or he signs it, whatever. He makes a statement that this man that you have sent, because he would have to believe that he's sent by the Almighty, that you have sent, this man is going to be my spiritual leader. He's going to be my sheikh, and I'm going to obey him as best that I can. I'm going to look to him for direction in every aspect of my life. So you have many people going around now who are actually saying that are African American and otherwise. Because one of the questions that came up was, can somebody be a part of MOA and be a foreigner? Well, a Muslim, wherever he's from, he won't necessarily be an active member. You might say, as I would say that Abdul Bookman, who was my companion for over 30 years, that I would say that he is a member. He's there all the time. He's taking care of whatever has to be taken care of. But this individual might still have an allegiance. And he'll say, well, I'm part of MOA. I've met people and they say, I'm part of MOA and I'm such and such and such. I've never seen these people before. They know, some of them know very little about MOA, but nevertheless. And one other point about the foreign aspect is that El-Sheikh Jilani is the sheikh of the whole Qadriya Sufi or Tasawwuf, which is the fact that he inherited the murids, or the students, or the followers of the Gausul Azam, as I just spoke about Imam Abdul Qadir Jilani, El-Sheikh, the Gausul Azam, which is the pole star. When you study Sufi orders, and there are hundreds of them, you'll find that they have a linkage or a nisbah, which goes back. You can trace it. In other words, you say, well, this sheikh was the student of this sheikh, who was the student of this sheikh, who was the student of this sheikh, and it should take you all the way back to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So when you go through these things, one of the central personalities that you also go through is Abdul Qadir Jilani. So our sheikh, he's not the leader of an African American Muslim organization. He is the leader of the Qadriya order, which has hundreds of thousands of millions of followers. That is the position that he has. It's just that by the grace of the Almighty, he took time out to us because we needed a lot of help. One of the things, or one of the adabs or etiquettes of a sheikh is that he gives the most help to those who need it the most, and we needed it a lot. Okay, we're first generation. I was first generation. My parents took Shahada after I did, so then I became second generation. But I was first generation. We were wandering around. We had got basically to the end of our rope. We didn't know whether we were coming or going. We wanted to be Muslim, but we were losing it. And we believed that the Almighty sent, El-Sheikh Jilani to help us, and he has helped us. And the fruit doesn't fall far from the trees. And if you were to investigate us, yes, we do have our problems. We have our problems with the youth, and we still have some problems with some of the old timers that have not been able to change or amend their ways. But overall, I can see, because I have a bunch of grandchildren, I have a bunch of children myself, and I can see that if my children were to line up in here now, you would be shocked at the credentials that they have. I'm talking about secular credentials and the contributions that they've made. You would be shocked. And if you go around the country, well, my family's one of the older families because I'm one of the older members, but you'll go around and you can see the same type of thing happening. You can see the same type of thing happening. The American dream, you can see it happening. You can see it happening in every walk of life. And we're very proud of that, and we're very thankful to the Almighty because this could not have taken place. I don't think it would. I think we would have self-destructed. I think we would have self-destructed if Sheikh had not come. So this is the type, I'm trying to get you to feel what we feel for him because you want to know what the relationship is. That's the relationship. So it's a loving relationship. He nurtures us the way a mother, he's very much a man, very strong in every manly aspect, but he's very much has the softness and the nurturing attitude or character or personality of a mother as she cradles her loving baby. Okay? After this, we evolved, and of course, the situation was resolved in Afghanistan. But nevertheless, at that point, then all the time, Sheikh was moving from one of our cities, or one of the basically inner cities. Many of us, even though we had very good jobs, so forth and so on. Some of us had very good jobs. We were living in a surrounding that was not amicable to practicing Islam. First of all, Islam was still new. People weren't so much familiar with it. They felt, some felt hostile towards it, some felt reluctant. Anyway, standoffish. And in many of the places that we lived, there was a decadence and immorality was reigning supreme. Those are the inner cities of many of the major cities. We were working hard, we were paying rent. Most of us were not buying homes. There was a few of us that were able to buy homes at that time, but most of us were renting. And Sheikh just came up with recognizing that our surroundings, and we all recognized the decadence of our surroundings. He said, in the Holy Quran it tells us that the earth is spacious. So he said, well, why don't you find a place that is much more suitable to raising a family in an Islamic environment? So, boom, we went out. In fact, the two of us for upstate New York. We went out and we traveled all over looking for affordable land, looking for beautiful land, looking for secluded land, but land not so far away from a city that we wouldn't be able to go, you know, and work or to shop. So we were able to find some land in upstate New York. We found it around the country as well, but I'll concentrate on upstate New York. Our purpose in finding the land was not to set up a terrorist cell. It was not to set up terrorist cells. It was not for guerrilla training. It was to get away from the guerrilla training that was taking place in the inner cities, you know, amongst the criminals. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to establish our school. We wanted to build a mosque. We wanted to become self-sufficient. We wanted to get goats, chickens, ducks, you know, the 9 yards. That's what we wanted to do. We're somewhat on the way there now, but you can imagine what happened when we moved in on the first day of hunting season and from the cities and not knowing a pick from a chainsaw. That's what our training was, how to survive that winter with a chainsaw and an axe and how to split wood and keep from getting frostbite. You know, that's what our training was. Our training hasn't changed that much since we've been up there. People say, oh gosh, we heard rounds going off. As I told Steve, I like guns. You know, I grew up with John Wayne. I had some other heroes also, but I grew up with John Wayne. I had a Fanta 45. I had a Winchester. I had all of those things. I love shooting. Do I shoot a lot? No. Why? I can't afford the ammunition. There's other things for me to do. But if I had the ammunition, I would shoot all the time. But that is what Americans do, don't they? Don't they go to the ranges? Don't they shoot? I don't have anything that's illegal. One of the questions was, how many weapons do you have in Islamberg? We didn't say Islamberg. He said that on the spot. I don't even know what weapons he has. That's not a part of our membership. We don't give you a card that says that when you join MOA, that this is the kind of rifle that you buy, this is the kind of pistol that you buy, this is the kind of training that you must have, you must report here, you must do this, this. No. I don't even have a clue what he has in his house. Some houses do have weapons, okay? One of the things that Sheikh has told us is that at no time should we have ourselves in a situation where any criminal act or anything unlawful takes place on our land so that the authorities can come up there, you understand, and kick in a door, you understand, and jeopardize the lives of our wives and our children. That's the purpose of that land, to give them security, and we should not establish anything that jeopardizes that security. If I know that someone is jeopardizing the security of MOA, Islamberg, or wherever they are, I will weed them out, and they will not be able to be amongst us. One of the problems is that we haven't been as diligent in that as perhaps we should have been. Why? Well, because we have families. All of us have intermarried, so forth and so on. Everyone is not strong. So you have some people that are very strong. They'll say, well, it's A, B, C, D, F, G, and then you have some that are not so strong. You know, but one of the things is I don't knock on his door and inspect his house to see what he has inside his house. But if I'm made aware that something is wrong, then I will step to it right away. I will step to it right away. And this is what our Sheikh has told us to do. Now what has happened is because people have crossed our paths. Some people have lived with us in the past. Some people have left. Some people have come to study at our centers, our Islamic centers. Some people have books that they have studied. Some have the tapes, so forth and so on. That does not mean in any way that if they go out and perform a criminal act, that it's because our Sheikh has said, Abdullah, you go do this, or that one of his, those in authority, or the Majlis or our council or whatever say, you go out and do this criminal act. That's not what it means at all. But what has happened, I don't know, because of the hype or whatever is going on, when somebody, they say, well, this is an individual, he was with, he had some relationship with members of Muslims of the Americas 15 years ago, 20 years ago, then automatically, the reason why he did what he did, whatever it is because Sheikh told him to do it. This doesn't happen with any other religious leader in the world. And our Sheikh has not been guilty of even the things, and I hope this is not sensitive, but this is a reality. He is nowhere guilty of the things that elected officials of this government have done. He hasn't even done those things. But he's attacked. And like I said, I don't know what your religious persuasion is, and I'm not attacking religion. I'm not anti-religion at all. You understand? But who blame the Pope? Not one individual would dare blame the Pope. Why? Because if they blame the Pope, you probably won't have a job. You probably won't have a job, and if you have a job, you probably won't get a promotion. That's a reality. And that's not a reality just for law enforcement. That's a reality, period. Okay? But because of the climate of what is taking place here in the United States, we can expedite this. Now, you know, as Mr. Benjamin spoke, he said they went through the thing with our Sheikh. Okay? He went on his own. He was detained, so forth and so on. They said he cooperated. Did you read that in the newspapers? No. They said that he didn't have any links. I read one sentence. It wasn't even a full sentence. It might have been 5 words that said he's innocent. He was found to be innocent, or he was found not to have any connection. One sentence. But for weeks upon weeks upon weeks, on every possible media outlet, you would find Sheikh Jelani, Sheikh Jelani, Sheikh Jelani, Sheikh Jelani, Sheikh Jelani, Sheikh Jelani. But when he was found that he didn't have any connection, nobody said anything. So what happens? The majority of the American public, including law enforcement, is still under the premise that he has a connection. That he has a connection. Why? Because those individuals, or the hidden hand, or whatever you want to call it, is not a figment of my imagination, because somebody controls the press. Well, whoever they be that controls the press didn't find it newsworthy to say that he's not innocent, that he's not guilty. They didn't find it. So what happens? Here we are sitting here in America, rural America, simply because we want a decent place to live, and all of a sudden people are going by with shotguns out of the air, shooting. Well, they didn't shoot. Well, actually, we had a situation where one of my, not lifelong, but Islamic lifelong friends, expired. He had a wife who has lupus, and he had 8 kids, and he expired because some gun-hole guys in the neighborhood decided that they were going to drive back and forth and shoot up some vehicles. So he came from a short distance away to investigate it, and because of the women and children inside, a legal weapon was brought out to protect the lives of our women and children. There was no law enforcement around. You understand? And a round was shot, and it said that my companion, my lifelong companion, was caught in the gunfire. He was caught. He died. He left 8 children and a wife. You understand? So that touches me. See, that touches me. I said, where was law enforcement for that? You didn't read about it in the paper. You didn't read about these cowboys riding up and down the road. You won't get that. But you'll have every possible accusation, negative accusation, will be in the paper about our sheikh, who's a very noble and honest individual, and an MOA. You see? So now, I'll continue.
When you get it to the breaking point, I want to take a break, so everybody gets a chance to refresh themselves, take 5-10 minutes.
Well, you can do that now.
Want to do that now?
I'm almost finished.
All right.
And
We got coffee and sodas and some crackers and cheese and fruit, so please don't take about 10 minutes. We will then get down to finish up with I'd ask you to go to some of the history and how they formed and what's the relationship to sheep and and that's what we try to do. What we'll try to do in the next few minutes is to get to the issues, some of the issues that we as law enforcement in this community might have. We've provided Steve with a list of questions and topics I've asked him to kind of cover, and then we'll open it up to anyone here that would like to have additional stuff they want, or any questions about what he's already gone over. So, Steve, I'll turn the floor to you. And let me introduce Mumin, Abdul Mumin, and he's another one, MOA member that we've had discussions with. Our initial discussion on September 12th was with Mumin when we first started, so just wanted to introduce him. Steve?
Okay. I'll try to cut this somewhat short. I tend to be somewhat long-winded. So is Steve. Okay. I'd just like to go into one point because I guess this is important. After the 11th of September, we felt, because of the reprisals and the negative press, so forth and so on, we made additional efforts to streamline our membership. That doesn't mean that we're sending anybody away per se, but for some years, as I said, Sheikh had told us to be diligent in the manner in which we, treat those that had not accepted the total discipline, to encourage them to do so, and of course, if they didn't adhere to that, then to ask them, not to step off, but to perhaps find another Muslim community wherein they could prosper or where they felt more comfortable. We did that in some cases, but not in every case. But what we have decided to do is to develop a membership criteria that we hopefully will, it'll be national, or I'll say throughout the Western Hemisphere, which would include membership cards. And with that, we would go, something that we have never done before, we would get personalized information about the individuals, their background, their history, even going into if they were involved in any previous, criminal activity or they were prosecuted for it. We would even question them whether they had any warrants or anything of that nature. We never do that before, but we feel that we have to do that now, okay? Because as it is, we don't want our sheikh to suffer, you know, from the acts of other individuals. You know, I mean, and that's the bottom line, straight up. We don't want him to have to suffer. Most of the suffering that he has done has been because there have been people that have been associated with us through just casually, or they, like I said, were students, or even perhaps even closer than that, members of the organization, or considered to be members of the organization, but they did not reform themselves in the manner which Sheikh has, you know, or has pointed to, or for all of us to do. So we're going to do that. That's a step in the right direction, I would say. We've tried to do this, you know, from one side of the country to the other. That doesn't mean to us, you know, this is not a quick fix type situation that will change everything. Because we still believe for some time to come that if someone has been attached to the Muslims of the Americas and they do something that's illegal, they're still going to point right now, because this is the way the trend is. They're still going to point to MOA or the administration of MOA or El Sheikh, you know, as the culprit behind whatever the act is that they do. Of course, it's unjust, it's unfair, it's unfounded, but nevertheless, this is what we're dealing with. We recognize that. So we don't think that just because we give out a membership card or we say that that person didn't have a membership card, we don't think that that's going to be enough for somebody to say, well, they're not a part. You know. But nevertheless, we will be doing something, you know, in that area. They want to know what our relationship is with Sheikh. Sheikh is the spiritual head of our organization. The spiritual head, he directs us according to the Holy Quran and the Sunnah, or the traditions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He goes into Islamic law and ideology, etiquette, adab, history. This is the area that he's involved in. He is not, you might say, every so often if there is an issue that we need some help with in terms of the structure of our organization or the direction our organization is going in, he will tell us what that direction should be according to the dictates of the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Holy Last Messenger, peace be upon him. He is not involved in every aspect of our organization. Like you could say, well, we want to plant a tree here, that we get permission from Sheikh to plant that tree. No, that's not true. He's raised us in a manner that all Muslims should be raised, males in particular, and, you know, in particular, and that is that any Muslim male should be able to perform whatever rites or rituals are necessary. That means that there's no priesthood in Islam. So every male should be able to give a sermon on Friday. He should be able to do the ritual or the prayers for janazah or the funeral prayer. He should be able to perform a wedding. And we could go on and on and on. In other words, every Muslim male should be able to step forth. If it's necessary for something to be taken necessary for something to be done, then all of the Muslim males, mature Muslim males, should be able to step forth and carry that out. How often do we talk to him? As often as we can. It's very expensive to call him, so we don't call that often. But emails, as you're probably aware, sometimes I feel that the other people on the phone with me anyway, so I feel that, you know, that perhaps somebody else should also. But nevertheless, we talk to him when we can. We try to stick with issues that we can't come to a decision on ourselves. You know, we don't want to bother him with trivial things, but if there's something like, let's say, what we did with 9/11, what took place then, he told us, he said, look, get in touch with law enforcement. He said, open a dialogue with them and explain to them what's going on. Explain to them your issues. Keep an ongoing, you know, an ongoing avenue open that you can do these things. So that's I wouldn't be here if he didn't say that. But that's the reason that I'm here, you know, is to open that, you know, and it was encouraged by him that we do that. You know, going down, I'm just going to shoot through this list a little bit. And I already did number 9, which is what type of firearms do MOA members possess? And how many? I mean, wow, I don't know. You know, the training or practice in the summertime we have for, usually 2 to 4 weeks out of a whole year. We have a camp, a boys retreat. We have boys from, 12? Yeah, we have boys from 12 years old on up into their early adulthood that come. Some of them live there, some are still in the inner cities, and they come for this period of time. And the first thing that we're concerned with them being there is that we show them up their religious practices, because many of them are basically by themselves. And during the course of the years, we were just talking with some of the local authorities. We do have, you know, some juvenile delinquents or whatever, but we hope that we can grab them and contain them, you know, in Islamberg per se, you know, for 4 weeks. And if you say brainwash, then we would like to do that. But we would like to instill Islamic principles in them and remind them of what their responsibilities are, so forth and so on. So we give them that. Their day starts sometimes at 3 in the morning, and they're not finished until 10:30 at night. And during the course of that period, they're getting classes galore in Islamic theology. Okay? Then we give them recreation in between. We give them rest time and recreation in between. And we do follow the Boy Scouts of America. You know, we had started a chapter back in Brooklyn, but we utilize that. We have merit badges, so forth and so on. And the only thing that I think you're really interested in is firearm training. During the course of this, let's say, month or 2 weeks to a month, they might fire off 2 or 3 rounds. They might be able to do that. In this rapid firing and all this stuff that the reports that we hear of automatic weapons, I have never heard or seen an automatic weapon in Islamberg. I see 2 or 3 people firing at the same time, but no automatic weapons. We wouldn't allow it. We would not allow it. And if you go up there, I don't think you, since, well, I don't know, for the last 6 months, I don't know if you would have heard 10 shots or something in the last 6 months. And that's a fact. The neighbors that are saying whatever they're saying, I would like to know who they are. I would like to ask them. Okay? I'm telling you this. Some of you might believe me, some of you might not. But believe me, if I had ammunition, you would hear me get complaints about rounds a lot. But I just can't afford it. Going on, security arrangements yeah. So many times you hear compound. You know, the camp, the compound. You know, we have a bulletproof wafer board booth, maybe 6 by 8, okay? And we have a fence, a gate. But if you want to come in, and I'm not just saying I don't want this to get out to the public, but you can walk right around the gate, and you can come in from any place that you might want to come in. That's the kind of compound that we have. What's the purpose of the booth? Well, first of all, we're very protective of our women and children. We don't want people just coming in driving all through the place, just like you wouldn't want somebody driving all through, you know, if you have some acres, you don't want somebody driving all through. But you come up to the booth, you say, well, what is your business? Well, my business is I'm delivering wood. Where do you go? I'm going to such and such place. Do you know where it is? Yes, I know where it is. Have a nice day. If a person comes in and they say that I don't know where I'm going, we look around and say, jump on the truck, go with them and show them where they're going. We have individuals that come in there and they go everywhere. They know everybody. The telephone, this is what you should do also. You know, if it's hard for you to digest this, ask the locals. Go talk to the locals. They'll tell you, oh yeah, I know so-and-so. I know when his grandson was born. Oh yeah, I take wood up there all the time. I fix the phones all the time. I come through with the electricity all the time. I come from Sears and I repair their appliances. This is what you find. Now, ask them how many people, you know, were posted on you. How many people followed you around? Did they have weapons on you? And they'll tell you, no. I just go do what I have to do and then I leave and they wait. We have one situation now since September 11th where we get oil. We've been getting oil from a particular company for years. Okay? And they come by now and I'm going to stop and say, well, where are you going? And he doesn't want to stop anymore. He said, what is it, some kind of a barrack? He said, what is it, some kind of a compound? And he guns his engine and he shoots on up the hill. You understand? This is what happens since this catastrophic event. This is the kind of thing that we go through. Okay? We have, of course, the reporters. They want you to speak to them when they want you to speak to them. They're going to take what you say and they're going to twist it around anyway. So you tell them, look, not at this time, that we'll give you an interview, so forth and so on, like we did with the Sun Bulletin. Some of you had a chance to see it. And we did it with 60 Minutes too, which was about 2 weeks ago. Maybe you were able to even see our shape on there where he responded. This is one of the first, in fact, this is the first time that we ever opened up ourselves to an interview. We didn't know what 60 Minutes was going to do. We had no idea. But we tried to give George Corral something to work with. We talked with him for hours upon hours. He spent 2 days with our chef. He said that he was nothing like the man that he thought he was because he had all the premonitions as well. You know, I guess he was shaking too. You know, but after a while he relaxed and he was able to, you know, get some concrete information out of the interview and bring it back and give it to the American people. So we were forced to do that because there was so much negativity that we had to say, well, let's just take a chance. We have to take a chance, and we did the same thing with the Sun Bulletin and other local papers around the country. But other than that, you know, we're not interested. You know, we don't recruit. We don't recruit. If somebody comes to us or happens to come to us and take some of the courses in the Chronic Open University, then they take those courses. You take those courses, you apply it to yourself, and wherever you want to go, you teach. We're not recruiting anybody. That's why you'll see, if you look through us, you'll see generations upon generations. You'll see intermarriage. You know, our sons and daughters intermarrying and so forth and so on. They say we're recluse. We're not recluse. You know, how can you be recluse when anybody can come? We mix with everybody. We don't. We go to the gym. The children play together. You know, we frequent the stores in the area. You know, I mean, we do everything that everybody else does. We're not recluse like that. All right? But it's 5 times a day you're going to find us praying. You're going to find us praying. So we're going to have to prepare for that. So we'll separate ourselves so that we can do that. But that's the only separation that exists. Okay. Security arrangements, if anybody comes in, we'd like them to stop at the booth and say what their business is. There's not a problem with that. Is there anything law enforcement personnel should be aware of when making contact with MOA members off MOA property? Just treat us the same way you treat anybody else. You know, we're no different. If we've broken the law, then give us the ticket. You know, don't talk about our religion or the way we're dressed. Just give us the ticket. And we haven't had any problems like that. We really haven't. You know, everybody that we've run into has functioned very professionally, you know, and that's local and state and the feds, in fact. In fact, they go out of their way.
Surprisingly,
No. Anybody here from the ATF? Nobody's raising their hand. Okay. But anyway, we haven't had that, and people have gone out of their way that if there is something that has to be dealt with, they give us a call. I know that every time you can't give us a call, but if somebody breaks the law, you're supposed to get a hold of them. You know, you're supposed to get a hold of them, and again, the objectivity comes in, you function in a professional manner, and we have had no cases up here in this area where that hasn't taken place. Everybody has functioned very professionally. We have no complaints about that. When something happens, I like to know who it is because I would like to get a hold of them myself. You know, just to give them a speech like this, you know, that's enough punishment for them, I guess. Okay. The thing, sensitivity, of course, I said we have sensitivities with our ladies and our children in particular. There is a dab or whatever, I know you're aware of it, the veils and so forth and so on. If, God forbid, but if there's any situation where that warrants, and I pray not, but if there's a situation that warrants a Muslim lady, you know, being interrogated or something like that, first of all, I would like to be contacted, or we would like to be contacted. And in terms of her dealings, we would prefer very strongly for her to be dealt with by a female officer, a female that deals with the situation. We have many of these situations like in the prisons, that sometimes the wives of inmates would come and the COs would want to search them or have them uncover themselves. Well, you know, due to the sensitivity, of course, we wouldn't want anything like that to happen. So we're hoping that in the various agencies or whatever in law enforcement, not just here in this area, but anywhere, that they would be cognizant of the religious overtones to what's taking place, and if at all possible, make the necessary arrangements so that our ladies do not have to uncover, you know, or be in a compromised position with any man. Okay, and that's not just for law enforcement. That's the way it is in terms of even with myself. In other words, he's married, he has a wife. Her beauty and her charms or whatever it is for her, for him, they're not for me. So I have, if she's in our presence, there's a hadith or a tradition that says that when a man is alone with a woman, the third party is safe, because there's always a chance that, you know, he's been messing with our father Adam for a long time, and there's always a chance that he might, you know, do something, you know, because we're all men and we all sin and we all ask for forgiveness, you know, but at any weak time, you know, anything can happen. So what we do is we practice preventative measures. So if his wife is there, then I would make sure somebody else is there. And I would make sure that, of course, that he would make sure and she would make sure that she's totally covered even if she had to come to my presence. So it's not something that's just for law enforcement. It's something that's for all men other than the husband or the brother, you know, a close member of that family. So that's not something that's just for, you know, just for law enforcement. That's period across the board. All right, do MOA members feel threatened by citizens? Well, the reality is no, we don't. Even at the worst time, we don't feel threatened. You know, we're very much men, you know, and we would function. One time Steve asked me, he said, if I heard a commotion in the woods, you understand, how would I handle it? You know, if somebody were out there. I said, well, the first thing I do, I would grab my shotgun and I go out. Because where I live, in Islamberg, we have bear, we have a lot of things up there. You know, so if I don't know what it is, I'm going to do the same thing that you would do. So if you probably grab a sidearm or something like that, I grab my shotgun and I go out and see what it was. He said, well, suppose you found that it was an individual out there that had no business being out there. I said, well, first I ascertained, his purpose for being out there. I said, if he's cordial, I'll be cordial. But if he's threatening, then I'll do what any man would do. Any one of you would do. And, it's the same thing. You have to understand that we're no different when it comes to that. Those of you who have wives and children, if somebody were to kick in your door, now, I don't necessarily think that you would go to page 309 of the manual. I really don't think that. I think that most of you as men would do as you've been trained or do as you thought. If you thought there was a threat to your wife or your children, that you would react. If there was only a baseball bat, you would grab the baseball bat. If your shotgun went next to your bed, you would grab your shotgun. I would not do anything different than you do. And that's a reality, and I hope that you understand what I'm saying. It's a reality. It's not a threat. It's just, that is a part of the American way. That is guaranteed in the Constitution that you can have a firearm. So I just make sure that I have whatever I have is legal, and I don't want to take a life. If it's to take one life, it's as though you taking a life for the entire world. I don't want to take one life. I have not taken it, and I don't want to ever have to do that. You understand? But is any man who lives by a doctrine, is willing to die by a doctrine, won't you do whatever you have to do to protect, your wife and your children? Yes, you would, and I would do the same thing. But that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm not looking to do that, and I pray that I never be in a situation that I have to do that. But would any man do it? Yes, otherwise you'd be less than a man. Okay? So that's for people that come from other than the front door. Okay? What concerns do NYA members have with respect to law enforcement? Well, the only thing is we just want to be protected by you the same way we would protect any other citizen. That's what all of it is in a nutshell. We want the same protection. We want the same considerations. We're not asking to be treated like special people or anything like that. If we can just be treated like Americans. And it seems like that's one of the biggest problems that we have right now. Not from law enforcement per se, but just in general. Is that there are Americans that won't let us be Americans. They just want to be Americans. That's about it. And in this country in particular, that's not a problem for a Muslim. Because a Muslim, in reality, and I've traveled somewhat, can practice more Islam in this country than he can in anywhere else in the world. And that's about a reality, and that's because of the Constitution. So that's what we want. We want to be able to do that. We want to be able to be treated like the Christian or the Jew. Nothing different. The same consideration. We want the same protection. We want the same protection from the Constitution and from law enforcement. The same thing. And another question was, would we consider being in law enforcement? Of course. I was speaking with Phil about that, and we're setting up something now. Once the weather has broke, now we're in the rainy season, but he'll be coming out and addressing the youth in Islamberg about the opportunities that are available in law enforcement. Why can't there be law enforcement? Why can't there be? There's no reason. Maybe we feel that, for some time we have our skepticism, or we have our reluctancies, or we have our premonitions, but we have to break out of that. We recognize that we have to break out of that. And I hope that all of you that might have the same thing, would recognize the same thing. That we all have to break out of all these other things that have crept into our decision-making patterns, or whatever it is, our premises. We have to deal with things, and I'll end with this, is peace. There's democracy and justice. But usually, you hear those mentioned in the same breath. But there has to be truth there also. You understand? Peace doesn't just mean that one stronger party, has subdued the other party. That's not peace. Democracy doesn't mean that the majority rules when the majority is subjugating, another people. Justice doesn't mean just us, meaning that everything that's available is just for us and nobody else can benefit from it. So these are the things that, 3 points that I'd just like to end with in this portion. And I guess open the floor, to some questions that you might have. And one thing also is that, and I was thinking about it, somebody asked us if we were going to bring a lawyer, and I told them that I didn't think I was going to be interrogated. But I've never been interrogated before. But they say the shield of a wise man is I don't know. One thing I won't do is I won't make up an answer for you. I won't make it up. If I can't answer it, then I'll tell you I can't, and I'll try to get an answer. If it's something that I don't want to answer, or something that I feel is incriminating in some way, then I'll tell you that. I'm man enough to tell you that.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. I think it's a big step. It's a difficult thing for Steve and his group to come to a group like this. It's probably unprecedented.
but it's not that bad. The group's not that bad.
Okay.
I'm optimistic.
But,
I thought they were hand-picked.
you know, it's a tough thing to do if you stop and think about it. When you just have the philosophy and the desire to kind of get away from the bad things in cities and go back and live in peace and love and harmony and practice your own religion, but the circumstances force you into the limelight. And as you just alluded to, there's individuals that have been involved in activities in the past. We're talking, often 10 years plus, that has come to law enforcement attention, so that individuals have been arrested. I think there's about around a dozen that's what we're talking about. And the last activity occurred in about 1991 when four individuals were arrested going to Canada, who were associates of MOA, and they had plans to blow up a mosque, a Sikh temple in Canada. And they were arrested. But so we talked to about those individuals. Anyway, well, let me open it up. I've got some other questions that I want to shoot at you, but I'll open up to the floor. Is there anybody got anything they'd like to? Sure, Tom?
Yeah, earlier you had referred to the 93 World Trade Center bombing. You didn't identify the gentleman by name, but was that somebody who we know as the Blind Sheep you were referring to?
No, it was an individual. I think his name is Rodney Hampton. Rodney Hampton. I think he's the only African American that was linked to the 93 World Trade Center. But he was African American. He was from Brooklyn. That's the point that I was bringing. Right. And he had a mosque or a place of prayer in Brooklyn at the time. And they automatically, tied that into us and into Sheikh. And again, what they're doing even now, they're saying that most of all the terrorism that exists in the world is because of a connection with Afghanistan. And at that time, of course, as I mentioned, our history with Afghanistan, I guess they just lumped it all together. And there's absolutely no connection.
Is there any connection between the MOA and the Blind Sheik, or
No.
Is that somebody you know him?
No, I've never met him. I've heard of him. I heard more about him after he was arrested than at any other time. But he never visited us. I think he's Egyptian or something like that. Very seldom do you find a foreigner, other than maybe one of Sheikh's Pakistani scholars, which we, when we go over there to study, so forth and so on, that we've, hosted. So when they come to the United States, want to go to Disneyland or someplace like that, then we host them as well. But other than that, you find very few, that come into our midst, unless we go into one of those seminars or taleems or something like that. It's or something of that nature where you have Muslims from all over. You'll find that even if you're doing these studies, let's say you go into Brooklyn, where there's still a large collection. Well, I shouldn't say collection, but there's a large community, Muslim community. You find that most of the Egyptians stay together, most of the Iraqis stay together, the Yemenites stay together, because there are, even though we're all Muslim, there are cultural differences, there are cultural likes, even if it's just a culinary things, or the dress, or the language. So you'll find that they feel more comfortable being with those from their homeland. So you'll find that most of them stay together, and most of us stay together. Every so often, I can say we'll come, and meet to some foreign and so forth and so on, but other than that, we basically stay to ourselves.
Bill? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Has Sheikh Jelani ever been to the Islamberg?
Yes, the last time he was here was in 89, 90. He got here at the end of 89 and left, I think, the first week in January, and that was for a ladies' retreat. We usually deal with the young men during the summertime, and in the wintertime, by the grace of God, he was able to get there. And what he did is he stayed with them for about 2 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And during that period of time, he held classes and lectures, so forth and so on. And he concentrated on the needs of Muslim ladies and the youth, our daughters. And he stayed there for that long. And he just returned. That's the last time he's been in this country. That was in January of 1990.
Question: Are your sect confined to the Hancock area, or are you downstate also? That's question number one. Question number two is, how do we know that you're Muslim? How would we know that this person is a Muslim of America? Would we ask him? would he tell us? And how many sects are there outside of Muslims and of America?
Well, it said it'd be 73 sects amongst the Muslims. Is it in only one?
In this country?
No, in the world.
In the world.
Forever.
Okay.
That's in our notes. We have most people that, as I said, it's hard. It's not like you said, like maybe a Christian church is where you get membership cards. So that's what we're trying to institute now, because we just fallen in some real ruts, trying to show that people are not really a part of us, so forth and so on. People are, fronting themselves as being a part, so forth and so on. There's little that we can do with that because of the nature of Islam, which is that somebody becomes Muslim and then they can just come and pray with you, so forth and so on. They don't have to have any other relationship with you whatsoever. They don't have to come to your classes. They don't have to give you any money. They don't have to do anything. But you still have to, if the mosque is there, they can come pray. If it's time for the Eid prayer, our celebrations, you can come and be a part of that. You understand what I'm saying? So, downstate, we have people who work downstate, but we have people all over the country. You understand? Some who will call us, some who will write us, some who subscribe to our newspaper, some who just from time to time, they'll come back and they'll visit us and say, I'm just coming through, I wanted to see you, haven't seen them in years. It's that loose type thing. But somebody says they're a member of Muslims of the Americas, you can ask, I can't say that they're not. They consider themselves a member of Muslims of the Americas, and I couldn't argue it. Only thing I could say is that this is not a, an active member. Well, that's the best I can use. I can't make up anything with that, But I would not deny them. There's just somebody comes up to me that I haven't ever seen, and says, Sheikh Jelani is my sheikh. I cannot say he is not. I cannot say that. It's just like somebody says, I'm a Catholic. What are you going to do? You're going to say, well, I'm a Catholic. You're a Catholic? Well, then you're a Catholic. And that's the same thing. It's the same thing with us. I think one of the things that's hard is that you use the term sect, and I can understand why you use it. But we're really not a sect at all. Muslims of America was just a vehicle utilized to achieve certain things, certain common goals. That's all it was. But it didn't differentiate us from the overall Muslim community. As I mentioned earlier, when it came to the discipline, the thing is that I don't watch TV, but there might be another Muslim who does. All right, so if you're living in Islamberg, then we encourage you to get rid of your TV. You understand? Because we believe that certain elements on TV are very negative, and they're not helping us in the development or the raising of our children. Certain things that are available to you, educational programs, documentaries, sport, but then you'll find somebody else who says their sheikh is their sheikh, but he says, I want to watch my movies. I want to watch my daytime serials, or whatever it is. And so I can't stop them still from saying that that this is their sheikh. And the way they respond to him is personal. Just like the Pope can make a statement, and 50 Catholics will say, I'm with that 100%. Another 50 will say it needs to be changed. Another 50% say, I'm not even going to pay any attention to it. Another 50% only come to church on Easter and Christmas. How many 50%? But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's no different, and that's the thing that we're trying to bring forth here. Islam is not different than another type of religion. And how do you say that? So it's not awkward. We're just people who want to give. The thing is that there's only one thing promised to all of us in this room, right? And that is that one day we were born. That's promised, no doubt, because we're here. And then one day we're going to leave. So we're spending our time trying to prepare ourselves for that day. All right. So when I go before the Almighty, I want to make sure that I'm clean. The devil with the horns and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. Everybody doesn't believe in that, but I know I don't want to go to the place that's not comfortable.
Well, here's the whole bottom line here, is that in Delaware County, a sheriff can go to you and say, okay, this is what we have, et cetera, et cetera.
All right.
If I'm down in Rockland County, which is where I come from.
Where do you go?
Yeah, who do I go to?
I have no idea. Make a long distance call.
Okay. All right, that was just kind of like.
Yeah, we don't have that.
You don't have that structure, in other words.
No, not like that. No.
Okay, fine. All right.
There are.
But you can always call me, or you can call, whatever numbers you're able to get a hold of. But usually, for New York State, you can call Islamberg.
You have what? Roughly 10 or a dozen communities throughout the country.
Right.
In different.
But we have people that don't live on the land.
Right.
See, that's the thing to understand. Everybody, but we have individuals in MOA that don't live on the land. They haven't moved there yet. Some are still trying to purchase land in the area. They don't want to leave their, the area that they were raised in, so forth and so on. So they're still trying to raise money, so that they can buy a plot of land and move there. So you have people that live in many of the major cities that are MOA, but they have not yet removed themselves from the cities and gone and purchased a piece of land. Because usually you try to do it with a few people because it's easier.
Two-part question. Number one, do your ladies drive? If so, are they licensed, and how do they handle the bail with the photograph in the state of New York?
Okay, well, most of them, the thing is with the veil is a particular style. You have different styles of veil. Most times when they are licensed, hopefully. Okay, I'll answer that part first. The other part is when they go to take their pictures now, they can pull theirs, so that the whole face is shown, so it's not obstructed, because that's what most when taking the picture, identification picture, they're concerned about. And in New York State in particular, we have no problems like that. New York is one of the most progressive states when it comes to Islam, no doubt. And that's everywhere. Okay.
And I'll start with civic duties. Do you answer jury notices?
Most times we'd be willing to, but our laws are such that circumstantial evidence is very difficult for us to come to a decision on.
Okay.
Okay.
And what about taxation per se? Are you a taxable entity or not?
Well, on our property, a portion of it is non-taxed because it's used specifically for religious purposes, and the other portion is where we reside. So that we pay, I guess they made an adjustment. We would like them to make some more adjustments, but of course, we have to pay all of our local civil servants.
Now, what about W-2s
It's your
and
fault.
stuff like that? In other words, when you go into the community, if you have people working in the community,
Yeah.
are they W-2 people? Are they
Yeah.
1099 consultants?
What do you mean, like myself?
Yes.
When I go, I usually go, nobody gives me anything.
I think he's talking about people who are employed.
Oh, no, you're W-2, definitely. Definitely. Everybody waits for a refund.
All right. And you talk about the, I think it's a concern of local law enforcement who hear about monies being collected and going over to Pakistan. Okay. And can you talk about it at your level, and also talk about it nationally?
Okay. All right. First thing that I'll say is that charity is a very great part of Islam. Okay. It's called sadaqah. It says that you give, your right hand gives so your left hand doesn't know that it's given. In other words, you don't give to be seen of people. Okay. It's also a form of purification. Okay. If you've done something that's on the dim side, and you're looking to purify yourself, then you might help someone who's in need. As I said before, it began for us with relief services. It began with the Afghan situation, where we started sending monies for the blankets and medicine, so forth and so on, housing, tents, such and such. We went to the U.S. government with that also. We went to, I think, McHugh. He used to be one of the officials up there. We went to his office, the Rayburn building, spoke to him about that. We spoke to him about Kashmir. And we get involved with anybody who's collecting monies for that. We do that. We send monies overseas. I've seen what the monies are used for. We have visited many refugee camps in those on the Afghan border with Pakistan. We have gone into Kashmir in particular, where, of course, what's taking place there, and we've done the same thing. We've distributed rice, blankets, medicines, tents, you name it, we've done it in terms of trying to help those that have been displaced.
Is there a certain amount that's required for everyone's salary? Is there the 10% expected to give, required
well,
to
it's
give?
just like the tip that the Christian church. This is what we try. We would love to get 10% from everybody, because then we would be able to do a lot of things to help a lot more people. But we don't really enforce it like that. We say that because
there's no MOA tax collector that comes around.
Well, yeah, but he's not like the ones here.
None
of that. But he comes in, and the thing is to make people aware of the purpose of it. See, the thing is that, as I told you, I don't look into his house to see what he's doing. Is that we know there's an ayat, and again, like I said, every time I go back to the Islam, is so that you will understand something. It says, Allah is with you wherever you are. Okay? And that's the premise of what we believe, that you can hide something from me. But it also says in the Holy Quran, not a leaf drops in the night that the Almighty is not aware of. So the whole thing is I'm not the policeman of, and I'm just saying that way, I'm not the policeman of my brother. If I see something that he's doing that's wrong, then I will step to him, but I don't play Sherlock Holmes. So if an individual knows that it's his responsibility or for his betterment to give sadaqah, to give charity, and he doesn't do it, then he's the one that's at loss. You understand? But I would encourage him to do it, and when I give my speeches or whatever they call them that people sometimes nod off on, I mention that because that's very important mechanism for us.
Does it come from the other locations through you to Pakistan?
Sometimes it doesn't, sometimes they do it themselves, sometimes an individual will do it. He doesn't want anybody to know. You know, in other words, we have a sadaqah box. Let's say this is a sadaqah box, it has a slit in it. Somebody will come by and he'll just drop it in the box. He won't put his name on it. We don't give out the envelopes with the number, you know, so it's, you know, next Friday you'll see your name up there that you only gave $5. You know, it won't be like that. You know, you can drop whatever you want. And we don't even care who puts it in there. You understand? We don't want to know. You know,
That goes to Sheikh Jelani?
it doesn't necessarily go to him. It can go to one of the other talibs in the sense of, my son was over there recently, and he was studying Islamic theology. So money had to go because he needed money for himself, and the teachers needed to be paid. You know, because they don't do anything for nothing. You know, and over there, you understand.
Talk about Pakistan.
Yeah, in particular, the what do you call it? The standard of living is nothing like what we have here. So any little bit that you can give them. When I went last, I had 2 qaris. A qari is one who teaches you how to recite the Holy Quran. I had one in the morning and one in the evening. He had to be paid. You understand? That along with, you know, the facilities that we have there so that we have some place to stay. We don't stay in hotels. You understand? We don't stay in hotels and things of that nature. We're not there to do tourism. We're there, like I said, my day started at 3 o'clock in the morning, and it went all the way until also over there till 10:30, and I was being taught all in between. I was writing all in between. I was reading all in between. You understand? So it's not. I don't want to be in the environment, you know, where the where the tourists are. So we have that. We have our own area. We had a special. The last group that went over, they were advanced Arabic class. You know, and all they did was talk Arabic. They had their quarters that they could go to. You know, and this is one of the things that Sheikh lifted us up with. You know, not only do we have our own properties here, but we have our own properties there as well. So when we go someplace, we can walk with some self-esteem. We can raise our heads up and say, yeah, we have accomplished something. We do have something. We don't have our hand out. We have our hand out to give, not to receive. That's what we don't have to go around and ask people, give us this, give us that. You know, no, we do it with what we have. We go out, we work, we take whatever monies we have, and if it takes us a year to do it, 2 years to do it, we've been in Islamberg since 1984. And just in the last few days, I've seen some things accomplished that took us a long time to accomplish, but I feel good about it, and it's ours. You know, it's something that we could say is ours. It's something that we can say that we're contributing. You know, we're improving. We're doing this. We're recognized internationally in a manner that African Americans, particularly African American Muslims, were never recognized before. You understand? We can say that this is, we have one of the most noble members of the family of the Holy Rasul, you know, Sallallahu, peace be upon him, with us right now. He represents us. He stands forth for us. He speaks for us. You understand? So we have, you know, we just raised up. You know, we're contributing, like I said earlier, to American society in every possible way that even your families are, and maybe in some areas more so than your families. We have more to prove. We have a longer way to climb.
Mr. Hack, you indicated in the beginning of your talk about praying over an individual with the Quran to correct physical or mental. Do you have? Is that an accepted religious healing practice?
Well, see, when you say accepted, in the Holy Quran, Allah Himself says that He has sent the Holy Quran as a mercy and as a healing. So for those who read and practice, then they would be aware of that ayah. But just like in the Christian religion, you have those. You've always had Christian mystics, right? You've always had Christian mystics. You had the sages. You had them all through all religions. Well, you have those who apply more so than others. We believe that anything that the Holy Prophet did, you know, in his lifetime, the time that he was here, you know, on the face of the earth, we believe that we can do the same thing. And as our Sheikh being an ancestor, a direct ancestor of the Holy Prophet, it is his responsibility to keep alive the religious traditions. You see, to keep them alive. So that's what we attempt to do also. And we've seen it work, by the way, and it's been documented in major hospitals.
So an individual who might be living in your community who has been diagnosed by the medical community as having schizophrenia,
right.
It is a practice, though, to use the Quran or use the process to treat him versus medication or...
No, well, it's up to the individual itself. A sheikh would never tell an individual, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. He will tell you, he will tell you what the treatment is. He said, before you tell somebody to do something, you must know why you're doing it, and you must know what the consequences are, whether they be good or bad. So it's not a dictatorship like that. He would give them the opportunity to choose one or the other.
and then the family,
The
and
family
the
would,
individual would make decisions
the
about
family would
whether or
make
not.
the decision.
Okay.
You know, because that's the way it is. The family would make the decision as to whether they wanted it, and they might try it for a time. And we have individuals who have, in fact, this down in South Carolina, we have one case of a lady who, I believe she had tumors, things of that nature, and there was nothing that they could do for her. So she had already been under chemotherapy. She was allowed to continue the chemotherapy, but when she started the religious practice or treatment, everything came to a stop. You know, the tumors stopped growing. They're still there. The doctor says, we can't do anything to stop the tumors, but the tumors have stopped. So whatever it is that you're doing, you know, continue to do it. Okay, so she's been around much longer. I have a companion who, unfortunately, he was involved in a shooting incident almost 30 years ago. He became a paraplegic. The doctor said that he's a diabetic and he has some other ailments, and the doctor said that with that type of wound, with that type of disability, that to live 10 years is much more than anybody can expect, and 15 at the most. He's been around for 30 years, and he's still abusing himself, eating. But anyway, so he also is under the care of Sheikh. And the thing is that, if I can just say this, the media points to 10, 15, I think he said 15 individuals or so that might have done something wrong. The media never points to the thousands of people that Sheikh has impacted, you know, in a positive sense, and who have, you know, have gained so much from their relationship with him. They don't even mention one person out there. You know, that's a tragedy.
Steve, one of the things, let me throw this in, but one point I wanted you to make is the connection between El Fuqra and MOA. How did that come about? What's El Fuqra? Is it a violent organization? Is it associated with MOA?
Okay.
There's a lot of...
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm surprised I skipped over that because that is a point that I've been making everywhere that I go. And that is Faqr. It means, the literal translation of it is poverty. Okay. Well, when Shahzad first came, one of the things is, as I said, he's a Sufi sheikh. One of the purposes of a Sufi sheikh, and I'm not a religious scholar, but one of the purposes of Sufi sheikhs, which we call tasawwuf, which is actually tasawwuf, is that he converts the heart. In other words, he becomes involved, he gives you spiritual exercises like I spoke about earlier, the zikring, the chanting, so forth and so on, or mamulat, or a religious program that you do every day or during particular parts of the day, to scrub the heart of the lust and desire for the world. Okay, so that you are in the world, you know, but you're not of the world. In other words, the world is not your major concern. Your major concern is preparing yourself for the day when you stand before the Almighty. So the fakir is one who is not a prisoner of the world. The root word is fakr, but the term is fakir. You'll hear that all the time. You hear the word fakir, you read it in books, so forth and so on, F-A-Q-I-R or something like that. Okay, so during the course of the discourses when he first came, he would speak and he would say, "O mu'mineen," all right, "O believers," "O fuqara," I mean, all those that are impoverished, okay, all those, you know, who are seeking to be separated from the world. Okay, during that time, he would use that term. It was used regularly. It was used quite often. There were those that were moved by the term, and they would even make up songs using that term, fuqara, so forth and so on. They would say that we are like the fuqara, we like the Jamaat al-Fuqara. But the Jamaat al-Fuqara was never an organization, quote unquote, organization. It was a station. It was a station, like you say, "O believers." So you say, "O fuqara," all right? I can't say "O impoverished," but all those who have detached themselves from the world. Okay? This was going on at the same time as that Afghan campaign that we spoke about. Because all this was happening within, I guess, from 1980 to 1983 in particular. All right, because the Afghan campaign was going on, we were getting ready to go overseas, to go to school, to study. We were making hijrah. This was the bubbling point of our organization. Okay, so what happened is those individuals that left at that time, they left. The jihad campaign was solved, or whatever it was. They went about their business. They still kept that with them. They still kept it with them in terms of saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a fakir. I'm a part of the fuqara. I'm a part of those who have separated themselves from from the world. You know, I'm not attached. I'm a Sufi, etc., etc." And the term caught on. It caught on and it spread. But we were Muslims of the Americas, and prior to that we were the Dar al-Islam, in Quantum Muslimun. But we never took that as an official, official name. And like I said, Muslims of the Americas was what identified us. We wanted to include, at first it came out, and I was there at that time. I was there when the original conversation took place, and Shahzad was there as well, our chef was there. And we were trying to identify. So the first thing we said will be Muslims of America. So everybody said, oh, that sounds real good. But then I looked around and I said, well, we got people in Canada, we have people in South America, the Caribbean. So that's the Americas. All right, so why don't we just say Muslims of the Americas? And that would include everybody that is, a part of us or wants to, identify with us. And that's how we got that name. I mean, I wasn't the one that just came up with it just like that. I'm not gonna take the credit for it like that, but that's what we were, that's what we were discussing, and that's how we came up with that name. So what happened was, during that time, it's the same period of 15 years ago where individuals were apprehended and convicted of certain crimes, and that is the name that caught on in the media. It was the media that actually, drummed this particular name up. It wasn't us. It was the media that latched onto it and kept it, and they want to keep it now. Why do they want to keep it now? Because they can't find anything wrong with it. Of course, we have some individuals that have broken the law, but I mean that's minimal. But so what they have to do is they have to keep going back. They have to keep going back and bringing up this term, and regardless of how many times we tell them that's not us, individuals will ask us many times as I've said what I'm saying right now. I'm going to have to say it in the future as well. And instead, overseas, when all this was going on with Al Sheikh, they tried to say, yes, this is the Fuqara Jamaat, and they're attached to this shadowy sheikh in Pakistan. That's the way it read in many other papers, who is the head of Tanzul Fuqara. All right, again, Tanzul Fuqara. I had never even heard of that. All right, and then they gave an interview. Again, remember, somebody's controlling the press. They gave an interview.
Money, that's what's controlled.
Okay, that's fine. Well, whoever has the money then. And nevertheless, it came out that they spoke to the Interior Minister, the Minister of the Interior in Pakistan, who's in charge of all organizations, particularly those that are supposed to be subversive organizations. His name is Haider. I'm not sure what his first name is. And he made a statement, which we were able to get off of the internet. And the statement says, he says, I am the Interior Minister. If there was such an organization, I would know. And I have never heard of this organization. He said, I have never heard of it. How, if my sheikh is supposed to be a part of this thing that the whole world should fear, and the man who's in charge of it right there says, I've never even heard of it. I've never heard of it. I've been with Sheikh over 20 years. I've never heard of it. I said, Tanzil Fuqara, what is this? This is another one of the ploys to do what? To point the finger at us. Why? And I believe it's because we make such inroads. We make such inroads here that there are people that don't want us, as I said, to be Americans. There are people that don't want to. I see Steve about it. I said, when Sheikh first came, he was talking to us about there's no limitations in what we can achieve in this American system. He said that I could run for the President of the United States. So I told Steve that, and he gave me his vote already. But this is the reality. People don't want us to do that. Well, you would run against me, Steve, would you?
Anyone else? Frank?
Yeah, Mohammed Asif, I just want to make a statement and then you could respond to it, and I have one question. I know from your statements and your position and your books that you believe that a lot of the scrutiny that MOA receives is due to discrimination based on race and religion. But I just want to point out to you from a law enforcement perspective, a lot of that scrutiny is justified by the association that members of MOA have with violations of the law and by the various reports that law enforcement get concerning members and activity of members of the organization. You've got the bombing conspiracy in Canada in October '91 involving known MOA members from the Dallas community. You visited them frequently yourself up in Canada.
Yes.
The murder of the Khalifa in Tucson, Arizona, 1990. Two MOA members have pled guilty to that, serving time now, and visited frequently in incarceration by other MOA members. The bombing of the Portland, Oregon hotel by Stephen Pastor, known MOA member, known bomb maker presently in Pakistan. And you've got not so significant the murder of a deputy sheriff in Fresno, California in August of last year by the son of one of your own members here locally. these reports come to law enforcement, and law enforcement has to respond by investigations. So it's some of the discrimination or some of the feelings of discrimination that you get from community may be just that, but from a law enforcement perspective, law enforcement responds to reports that they receive. And based on the caliber of some of these activities, that scrutiny is well deserved. But you're welcome to respond to that. I'd be interested in your response.
Okay, well, first of all, each situation is independent. Okay? The thing that I want to express first, before I address some of those issues that you pointed out, is the fact that these individuals have been caught, they've been tried, they've been found guilty of a particular crime. Anywhere during the investigation, has there been any evidence to say that Sheikh Jelani, knew what was going on, that he's the one who orchestrated it? Is there anything to say that administrator of Muslims of the Americas is the one who actually orchestrated it? I can understand what you're saying from a law enforcement perspective, okay? But what I'm looking at is that you have, maybe law enforcement has established MOA in a mindset that they forced it themselves. Because what you're saying is that we have such an organization that's so tight, so disciplined, and so robotic that no one would do anything unless it had been ordered by someone in authority of the organization. And I say to you that is not the case. And if you were to, or maybe you have, if you were to find out the mindset of the individuals that were involved in this, or find out what their role was in terms of MOA itself, in other words, how dedicated they were, to MOA when they did these different things. If you were to find out that that this type of behavior was promoted by MOA or by our Sheikh, then it would have some credence to it. But you're not going to be able to find that because that's not the case. You have individuals who, as I said, they might say that they were part of MOA, and I said in the very beginning, you had some that were active, you have some that weren't so active, that might have been involved in criminal activity. But at no time can you say that the criminal activity was, the catalyst for that criminal activity was Imam el-Sheikh Mubarak Ali Shah Jelani, or MOA, or IQOU, which is, we did bring up, which is our theological institute, International Quranic Open University. You're not going to be able to find that. But what happens is, and this is when we say the disparity, is that, again, and we'll go back, and I'm not picking on the Catholic Church, okay, please, but the mafia. You have, I'm a fan of The Godfather, and so much monies were given from the from the Godfather to the Catholic Church. Okay, so are you going to tell me that the Pope knew what the mafia was doing? You have a priest who sits in a booth and he listens to somebody say that they're guilty of the most heinous crimes. You understand? Could affect all across the society. But because he has a code of silence, he says so many Hail Marys and you're all right and you can go. So why don't you go to the priest of the Catholic that committed the crime? There are more Catholics, there are more Protestants that commit crimes in this country and in the world than there are Muslims. You understand? And catastrophic things. How many members of the parish of McVeigh did you visit? How many members? And how many of them did you say, might possibly have been involved in this because they went to the same church or went to the same Sunday school? Or did you take the priest or the minister or the pastor, I think he was a Protestant, did you take that pastor and did you interrogate him? Did you malign him? Did you put his name all over the paper? I don't even know what church he went to. I don't know what school he went to. So why are you doing it with my Sheikh? Why are you doing it? Was he a Democrat? Was he a Republican? Was he in the Knights of Columbus? Was he in the Elks? I can keep going on and on and on. How many people did you attach him to simply because he knew him, and how many people became suspect simply because he knew him? And then during that period of time, I've learned so much about the militia. How come I don't see their names in the paper? How come I don't read their names in the paper? I don't read it today. I didn't read it then. How come there was a cloak of secrecy over it? Okay?
Well, I think,
from law enforcement.
And I'll respond. There isn't a cloak of frequency.
Well, I'm talking about in terms of what's in the media, what's in the paper, because that's what we're going about.
We don't, and we've had this discussion, we don't control the media. They pick up on what they pick up on, they print to sell papers, and that's the bottom line. If they think you're going to sell papers.
But what we're talking about is, he said, when the report, I'm sorry, and I understand what you're saying, when the report comes in, and it says that a member of so-and-so did such and such, and all of a sudden, all MOA shuts off automatically. He hasn't been in the country since 1990. You understand what I'm saying? But all of a sudden, he's responsible himself for what it is that that individual does. He doesn't even know that individual from Adam. He never talked to the individual. He doesn't know the individual's family. He doesn't know where the individual lives. But yet, you're going to hold him hostage for something that someone else did?
We as law enforcement are not holding those responsible, those people responsible.
But you
We're
keep
not.
saying, no, but you do, because you parallel it, because you say MOA, this is a member of MOA, this is a member of MOA, this is a, you do parallel it. I don't blame you for it, because I understand the dilemma, it's a dilemma.
The car that was, there were 2 cars stopped at the Canadian border.
No,
They had 8 members in it, and they were all MOA members.
That's fine. But what I'm saying is that MOA, you say MOA members, they were all Republicans. They were all Democrats. What I'm trying for you to understand, because somebody comes, they can have all Yankee shirts on. The Yankees can't be held responsible. Why do you want, in your investigation, to hold Sheikh responsible for something that he had nothing to do with? This is the question that I have. That you say that MOA is the question has been, is MOA a terrorist organization? I'm in MOA. I am MOA.
Well, it's being done today with Cardinal Law up in Boston. It's being done with Cardinal Eden. These are both Roman Catholics.
Yeah.
There's a strong movement today, absent the media, to have them removed from power.
Right.
The same issue that we're talking about.
Because you know why?
Now, were they responsible for the homosexuality of the priest?
No,
Absolutely not.
Yes, the cover-up. Right, I understand that. But my sheikh doesn't know these individuals like that. That's the point that I'm making.
But we can feel the same anger.
Oh, yes, of course. And you should. And that's what I use as my example. The fact that you feel the same thing that I would feel. But just as you have a right to feel yours, I have a right to feel mine.
But this is human nature.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
That's all this is.
It's a paradox. It's a heck of a situation that we're in. And the reason why I took the time to come here was to try to break that down. I know that everybody's not going to believe it. I know that. Because if everybody believed it, this would be such a beautiful world. Because somebody could get up and just say something and they believe. I don't expect that. But I expect you to check us out. Don't go. Don't just say, well, this individual's in MOA, so all of MOA is bad. And the thing is, no, I know you are. You're a nice guy. All right. No, you wouldn't be. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I can tell from the way you're expressing yourself. You understand the sincerity in what you're trying to present, and I understand that. And that's the very point that I'm trying to make. If somebody knows that there's a cover-up, then get them. Because if there's a cover-up in my community or my organization that jeopardizes the security of my wife and my children, and I find out about it, I will step to it. Okay, I will step to it. You understand? Because I don't appreciate anybody doing that, Muslim or non-Muslim. You see, and that's the way I feel about it. Okay?
And see, the part, and that's why one of the reasons we're here is to try not paying everybody with the big dollars.
No, but I
think we in law enforcement generally, certainly my experience, recognize it.
Yeah.
Though we cannot be the spokesman for any particular group. We don't give press releases supporting one way or, any.
That's too much to ask.
Anybody else.
You stop me, I'll give it a
But, Larry, did you have something?
Yeah, well, as an official policy, the bottom line here, MOA does not condone criminal activity.
Absolutely
They
not.
uphold the laws of the United States. You're all
we have
Americans.
individuals that might be zealots or individuals that might just, look.
But not as an
somebody takes
organizational
shahada. I worked in the prison.
policy.
Somebody takes shahada, becomes a Muslim. He was a bank robber, okay? He's in a prison, all right? And he's model Muslim, okay? Saves his life, it makes things easier for him. Special diet, the whole 9 yards. He gets out. He comes and he hangs out. He says, I'm down. But then he goes and visits the old neighborhood. And it's recidivism, all right? And he says, wow, I've been away for a while and I still like the nice car. I still like this and that. And then he goes, you understand? And he robs a bank. No doubt he robbed the bank. Sheikh does not say rob banks. He says go to work, take the money out of your pocket, and make a sacrifice. All right? This individual doesn't want to do that. He never did it. See, he never did it in his life. He wasn't raised like that. Understand? So then he goes and robs the bank. Did he rob the bank because he became a Muslim? Did he rob the bank because a member of Muslims of the Americas gave him shahada? No, he robbed the bank because he's a bank robber. That's the bottom line.
And you as an organization, you can speak for the organization,
Yes.
condemn that kind of behavior.
I condemn that.
All the examples that Frank gave over here, condemn all
He knows
those
that
things.
already, but he's just trying to bring it out to make a point. And I understand the point. I understand the point that he was making, but the point that I'm trying to make is, please, because don't blame our sheikh. I told you this when I first started. That is my primary thing. Something can happen to me. I don't want nothing to happen to me either, by the way. But my sheikh is more important to me. He's more dear to me. He's the reason why I'm sitting here. He's the reason why my family has had the success that it has had in all the positive sense. I don't want a hair on his head touched.
I think you see, part of what Frank is saying is that because of these incidents,
Oh, yes.
you become on law enforcement's radar screen.
We're not talking about law. I understand what law enforcement has to do. I understand what you have to do. You understand? But like I said, I was speaking to somebody, a gentleman here earlier, and I mentioned it before. I expect the objectivity. I expect the objectivity. But I don't want to see where law enforcement is being propelled into an arena or taking a particular stance or launching a particular investigation because a special interest political entity says, check these guys out. Because, yes, and we know that. We read it in the paper.
I think this is a question we all have in law enforcement. Are there any limitations that Islam has on cooperating with law enforcement? You know, can we approach?
I have been asked this question before, and I hope I'm never in that situation. I have not been in that situation as of yet, but I hope I'm never in that situation. Most of the laws that you find in society, most of them, in terms of what's unlawful, you'll find those same parallel laws in Islam. We will say, if somebody is doing something wrong, we will do all we can to reform them. When we turn them over to the authorities, we have been told at times when individuals have jeopardized the security of our organization, you understand, that let the police have them. Do we turn them over just like that? We haven't had to do it, but the police have got a hold of them. Somehow, they've been able to do that. All right, would we harbor somebody? No, we're not into harboring anybody. Yeah.
Actually, that brings up a point I was going to make. You said we should check you out if there are questions regarding your organization, especially where you're living and you have your school and your mosque.
Right.
Stories that have gotten back to me from someone who works in our school district who's a volunteer fireman up there, and also that our detectives mentioned. Particularly, wanted to be able to look at people who are living up there to see if they recognize to them it wasn't the same person they were looking for. They felt they had a false name. They wanted to be able to look at people who were living up there to see if they recognized the person. They were told, no, they were not going to be allowed to leave the car. The volunteer firemen that work for our school district gave an example of they received an ambulance call. The ambulance itself was stopped at the gate. The ambulance crew was taken off and escorted to where the problem was with the stretcher, and then the person was escorted out. However, the ambulance was not going to be allowed on there. There's also been cases where the fire department has responded up there, and the fire truck's not even allowed onto the property. They're stopped at the gate.
I can't dispute it. I can't dispute that. I know most of the time, if it's the winter time, the ambulances and whatnot can't get up there. I will tell you from a personal, I'm not saying this situation didn't exist. You have people with different degrees of understanding. We don't have trained security personnel or anything like that. We just have people who say, well, I'll be here. We say, well, can you be here during this period of time? So they might have been apprehensive for one reason or another. I don't know what it is. But right now, I'm trying to get ambulances and medical service to come up there and pick up my 81-year-old mother, and they won't go past the mailbox. Okay?
Well, perhaps it's because in the past they haven't been allowed to.
No, they have. We've had people to do that. I would like to know what the actual situation was rather than.
Well, I'm
not denying.
Well, I'm more concerned though about. You said you wanted to cooperate with law enforcement. However, when our detectives went there looking for somebody, a particular person for a particular reason, not just snooping around or anything.
Was that Ilium?
Yep.
I was the one they talked to.
Okay.
I'm glad you know, and I was there. There was state trooper there. There was someone from Johnson City there. There was the local authorities were there. All right, and they spoke to me. I'm glad you brought that up.
I wasn't aware it was you.
No, yes, it was me.
Yeah.
And I'm glad.
They said that it was very, very little cooperation.
Well, that's not what happened at all. What actually happened when I was there, and I still have the detective's card. I said to him, I said that Illy does. His family lives right down here. And I showed him where he lived, which was right at the front of the land, okay? And I told him, I said, I haven't seen him in days. And the family was not there at that time. The father frequents New York City as a business down there. I said, the family wasn't there. I said, I will turn the card over to the family, okay, and the family would get in touch with whoever the superintendent, whoever the detective was, so forth and so on. Since then, I understand he had got a lawyer. You know, I don't interfere in their personal stuff. I gave him the card, they got a lawyer, the lawyer got in contact with the Johnson City Police and so forth and so on, and to this day, I don't know what happened after that.
Well, Mark,
How much cooperation was he looking for? Nobody was in the house.
They asked to come onto the property and look around for him, and they told, no, that's where his house lived?
No.
Period. You guys can't even get out of the car.
They get out of the car. They were up by the Islamic Center. Excuse me, sir. They had passed Ilyum's house already. Ilyum's house was the first house that you passed on the land. They were up there standing with me at the place where we make salat. The call for prayer was made. Okay? And the thing is that when a story is necessary, and I brought out the thing about peace, I brought out the thing about democracy, and I brought out the thing about justice. And I said, and none of those things work unless truth is there. Okay, I personally called that detective back several times myself. All right, and I'm glad that you brought.
No, I'm talking about up there at where you all are.
That's where I was. That's where I was.
You're talking about phone calls. I mean those. For instance, they asked to go look around for him. They were told, no, they can't.
You know what? The only way that we can do this in Islamic law, we don't deal with circumstantial evidence. I would like if it's affecting you that much or your department that much, I would like to meet those individuals.
The reason it's affecting because whether the story is completely accurate or not, it's spread as an example of a lack of cooperation.
Yes, but
that's what I'm trying to clear up. If you're saying that they never asked you to look around for him.
No, that's not what I said. What I said was that he is not home.
Yeah.
All right. I said the family is not home. I said I would give them a card. You understand? If you left a card with me, and they will contact you.
So did they ask to look around for him?
I don't recall them asking that.
Okay. Well, the person they tell us that they did ask to look around.
Now, if you asked me if they had asked, would I let?
And why is that? Why is that?
Why is that? Because we're very protective. If you have a warrant or something of that nature, that's when they never said they.
No, they didn't have a warrant for him. At that time, they did.
Okay, we said again, we want the same protection under the law as everyone else. If I had got my hands on him and known that it was going to jeopardize the security of the organization, I would have made sure that you would know that he was not there. Okay, and that's all, and that's the best way for me to.
If he had been there, would you have turned him in so you could at somebody else's house? Would you say, well, he's not home, but he's at that house right there?
If it jeopardized, if he had done something wrong and it jeopardized.
It's a simple yes or no question.
And it jeopardized our whatchamacallit, our security, yes.
They were looking for him, investigating a crime he's committing.
Yes.
Would you have said, he's not home, but he's over in that house over there?
Well, I would have got a hold of him. I would have got a hold of him.
That's not my question.
I would have got a hold of him, and you would have got it.
That's not my question. Would you have said he's over there?
However, we're trying to, the bottom line is, what are the procedures if an law enforcement officer...
If you're looking for somebody that's there, and I know he's there, you have him.
Okay.
You have him.
You're going to provide that?
Yes, because he's jeopardized with our shaking
On the
stick.
spot there.
On the spot. That's right. That's right. That's why we preach this all the time. The locals know about it. We ask for their names. Who did it? Who did it? Who did what? Okay? If we were treated by law enforcement, and this is not an excuse, but if we had that trust of law enforcement, that they were looking out for us in the manner that they look out for others, you understand what I'm saying? Then it'd be easier for us to do those different things.
Well, see, that, in a roundabout way, that's kind of what I was getting.
Oh, okay.
In Johnson City, we have a mosque and religious, Islamic Religious Center.
That's correct.
I don't know if you all are affiliated with that.
Well, we're Muslim, that's all. We go there and pray when we're there. But it's not an organization.
Involvement.
Right, it's not an organization.
Yeah, not Islam, but as an MOA organization.
Right.
I don't know if you have any involvement.
No.
They seem to, the people involved in that seem to have taken almost the opposite approach that you guys have. They had a widely publicized big open house when they opened up. Anytime anyone's had any, and Mariam has had any questions, they've been more than eager to help. After September 11th, they contacted us that day. They requested police presence there on Fridays and Saturdays. I said, they seem to have almost been over backwards to invite the community into what they do, to see what they do, to look at what goes on in their center. Where it seems like you guys have taken almost an opposite approach.
Well, they haven't been treated the way we've been treated.
And because you haven't invited people, open house up here, come in, see what we do.
No,
come on up, Thursday afternoon or
You're planning an open house, right?
Yes, we are. We've had open houses in the past, and when we have our Eid celebration, so forth and so on.
I don't recall ever seeing anything publicized.
Well, you're in Johnson City. We're basically dealing with those in our area. But let me just say this to you. On the 12th of September, our people were down there at the relief effort at the World Trade Center. Physically, they came in from all over the country.
Okay, I'm talking about it up here.
No, but I just want you to know that because I want everybody to know that it wasn't like we were just sitting back doing anything.
I understand.
Now, you have not walked 1 mile. You haven't walked 10 steps in my shoes.
No, I haven't.
All right? You have not experienced anywhere near what I've experienced, all right, as a Muslim. Okay, just as a Muslim, just for being Muslim, without anybody knowing anything about it. We have a reason for our cautiousness in the way we do things. It's not because we don't want to mix, because we do mix. The locals are here. You don't mind me calling locals, but the locals are, that's what they call them. They call them locals. They're here. You understand? They know what we're going through. They know what we've gone through. They know our history. That's why I say, talk to the people in the area. You can talk to the detective who came up or whatever it is. You understand? I don't know if there'll ever be a time when we could do everything just the way you would want it to be done. You understand? We don't know that. But we know that the reason for us being here now is so that we can remove some of the misnomers. The reason why I even set first with the FBI was so that situations like what you're talking about would not, take place in the future. Regardless of what has happened in the past, if we stay in the past, then we'll never be able to get to the future. But our situation has improved, even with the locals. It's improved with the state police, I believe, and hopefully it'll improve with Johnson City and Binghamton and everywhere else that we are. And it has. Sometimes a catastrophic event takes place and it forces us into a situation to deal with issues that maybe we didn't want to deal with before or didn't know how to deal with. Now we're learning how to deal with them. It's the first time that we've sat down with an audience like this. I knew that sensitive issues would come up. I mean, there's no doubt. But if I wasn't aware of that, and if I didn't think the purpose of this was worthwhile, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you now. So that's the bottom line. Okay, I came here because I thought some good would come out of it, and you brought out a situation in a sensitive situation, and I can understand where you're coming from the law enforcement perspective. I can understand that. But the only thing that I can say is, one thing that our Sheikh has always taught us, and what he does, he said before he makes a decision about something, it doesn't make any difference whether it's his closest deputy. Before he makes a decision about something or takes a position on something, he brings all the parties that are involved together. And if Johnson City had a problem like this, which I think took place maybe a summer ago or maybe 2 summers, I'm not sure.
Year and a half.
Then I would have appreciated it if they had told me that, and I would have dealt with it then. I thought everything was resolved, to be honest.
It was all because he, getting caught.
Yeah, he didn't just get caught.
He turned out.
Yes, exactly. There's a difference. He turned, and why did he do it? Do you know why he did it?
No, I don't.
Okay. Case closed.
But that's not the point. The point was, that's not the point, though. The point was they went up there expecting cooperation for you guys to get a criminal out of your midst, and they didn't receive it.
He wasn't there.
I guess I disagree with you. I'm familiar with both entities, and knowing, having spoken to Johnson City and the detectives involved, and then the person who you were speaking of, who not only was disenfranchised, I believe, from certain idealistic beliefs that they had, who's not embraced right now by them, and you said he wasn't there, and he wasn't.
That's
so, and the fact that he was using
I thought myself I was not there.
I know what you're saying. You're saying procedural.
I'm just saying it would have shown an eagerness to cooperate with local, to be accepted into the larger community for what you are. If you had said, no, he's not here. In fact, if you guys want to look around for him, go ahead.
I understand where you're coming from.
That's all.
We may get there someday.
Yeah.
We're not there with Muslims and Americans, as we're not there with a lot of other groups in this country.
Right.
We can't walk up in middle Montana. FBI agents just can't walk up in one of the camps with the right-wing militias out there and say, hey, can I look around?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen.
It was a little
It just
sensitive. I
doesn't
understand.
happen. Yeah, you can, and maybe at gunpoint. And, and that's one of the reasons, I'm very happy you brought it up. It's one of the goes to the crux of what we want to do is to get those seizures, those kind of issues. What happens when law enforcement needs to come up on their land? when it's a routine matter like this, or when it's an emergency, when you're running lights and sirens and you're chasing somebody who runs up Route Street Road, you know,
And he comes on out
and he comes on your land, and here comes the cavalry behind him.
You probably do better to go around on the other side because we'll pick up the chase from there.
But I mean, you guys come running out with your guns, and you know, the state has got the, so, you know, it's an issue because of the concerns they have, and that's one of the reasons, you know, I asked Steve to go into the history of the organization, and a lot of the, another word of it, paranoia, stems from some of the background, and why they began, how they began, why they're living in places like Hancock. They want to get away from those issues, they want to live in their own communities, and do their thing, and make their own world. And, you know, they're just so far back in which you can get. The reality is, you need to deal with the rest of the real world, and especially when something like 9/11 happens, and you have to be the same religion as the people who perpetrated it, there's extra scrutiny that's going to be on it. Right. And so when someone comes up and says, hey, I'm Johnson City, or I'm Binghamton, or, you know, NYPD marches up there, and say, hey, I just want to look around, you have a warrant to know, well, they have a different perspective of that, you know.
But there's also
the reality.
There's also a lot of other Americans that aren't militia or anything else that have that same perspective. They'll say, well, do you have a warrant? You don't? Well, when you come back with a warrant, I'll let you come in. There are a lot of Americans that do that. They don't have to be, you know, radical, whether they're Muslim or whether they're militia or whatever they are.
And I think maybe this is a discussion for us in law enforcement without forget about, you know, CEVA and MOA, is, you know, the proper procedures. You go through Delaware County, the state police are out there on a regular basis, you know, even our office who are regularly in contact with them.
Steve,
Can I mention something? Just one. Yeah, well, can I mention one point though? When we first started down in Brooklyn, right? And I don't know the history of it, and I'm not saying that this is what has to happen up here, but we had there were some situations where individuals went into one of the mosques. It had nothing to do with us, but they went into a mosque, and an officer was shot. I don't know, was he killed? The one in Hall?
Yes, he was. That was up in the 2A precinct.
So the officer was killed, all right. As a result of that, New York City came up with a hotspot map. Right? The hotspot map had certain areas marked off where different mosques were, where different sensitive areas were. And their procedure was, we didn't develop the procedure, but what their procedure was that whenever somebody responded to this spot, I think it was a sergeant or higher in rank, you know, had to be present. Okay? And they did it for so many years, and I don't know if we ever had an incident. We had incidents where they were looking for individuals, and they came to the mosque, and it was handled, I guess, in a professional manner because they set up the criteria for, you know, how it was handled, and we didn't have any confrontations. You know, so this is not something that's just with MOA. This is something that has happened before. You know, and
I just wanted to comment on what you said. Speaking as one of the locals, we've had a very good rapport, both civil and criminal issues that we have had. I believe we've been allowed to question people. We've been, you referred to a case where one of the individuals took us in a truck back up into the residence, and we were able to interview a family. I can't think of a time when we've had a conflict with them.
Mohammed, the two things that I would like to address today before we break up. One is that you were introduced as the president of MOA, but I know that there's a hierarchy structure, Amir, Naib, Khalifa. I would like you to get into that a little bit. How many, you know, what's the level, how many Khalifas, where they are, who they are. And the other thing that I'd like to address today is the connection. Maybe Abdul Mumin could address it. You know, what's the tie with 786 Security in Brooklyn, and I know Hussein goes down there. And, could you talk about that a little bit? I mean, that's part of your group. And
what's the leadership structure? How do you make decisions as MOA? Is there a council? Is there a...
Yes, there's a modulator. But first, dealing with 786, one of Khalifa Hussein Abdullah, which I'm sure you're aware of, he owns a security company in Brooklyn. All right, so that's the connection. That's his company, his personal company.
But are you, Abdul, are you?
So my name's connected with that.
I'm trying to get your name right. Abdul, were you a security guard down there for a while?
Yes.
Okay.
It was,
Maybe you could address that question.
it's just basically a security company that we started. Hussein Abdullah got his investigator's license, and we started the security company after the previous security company folded. You have their records on that?
Very simple.
Dagger.
How long ago?
Dagger investigation. That was back in 1980, and been in the security business since '74.
You have?
And I mean, it's basically just a business. Security company is a business.
And provide security to who?
Provides basically security at restoration, real restoration, and nonprofit community organization for the restoring houses in Brooklyn and whatnot.
Is it a contract or something?
It's a contract.
Business restored, and I go to you with
Complex,
it.
housing, construction, security, just the basic security of people and equipment and property in Brooklyn and so forth.
You had a Dallas Center on Hancock Street.
Yeah,
That's connected with 76 Security.
With MOA? No, it's MOA.
It no longer exists.
No. We're looking for another site. Another. Yeah. It's just basically a lot of members of MOA work for Hussein.
There's always a lot of reports of money laundering going on there, and maybe money getting lost.
Well, he's under IRS scrutiny at this particular time. I mean, they're all in his books. I'm sure they will come up with something if there's a problem.
Thank you.
The leadership?
Yeah, I was just going to say, when the MOA does not run, 786, believe me. It's a separate entity.
Well, it has been called the front organization, but...
Yeah, but who's... Well, I don't want to go there again.
It's Hussein's business.
Yeah, believe me, I don't get a check.
I mean, I helped him establish it, I helped him build it, I helped try to become a partner, and then he said no. So, now, it's not a part of the religious organization.
You have issues. You have issues also.
Yes, I have issues also.
Are there
I'm owed money.
are there non-MOA members?
Excuse me?
Are there non-MOA members?
Yeah,
that are part of it?
definitely.
How many people are employed by 786 roughly?
It varies from contract to contract.
Like
But it's
20, 100, or
the equal opportunity employees. Men, ladies, Muslim, non-Muslim.
Hundreds of employees?
No,
it's a
Well,
small.
the security company turns over.
People come and go per.
Yes,
on
all
contract.
that.
It's not mutually exclusively MOA people.
No.
most of them aren't even Muslim.
Okay.
I mean, I don't say not even Muslim, but you understand what I mean. They're not Muslim. Okay.
Is that armed security guards? Are they licensed?
They have everything lawful. The only problem they're having is with their taxes right now.
But are they an armed security?
I think he's the only one.
I think he's the only one at this particular time. I mean, in the previous security company, yes, there was armed security company.
The hierarchy. Shasab is our spiritual leader. Everything that we do is motivated by the Holy Quran and the traditions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, and the fiqh or the Islamic law, Sharia. So just about everything we do is motivated by that. If we have not already been taught how to handle a situation, then we need some insight into it, then if necessary, we will call him, or contact him and ask him how to handle the situation. You have a council, you have caliphs. Caliphs are those individuals that have been given particular responsibilities within the organization. They are also individuals that sit on what is called the majlis, which is a council. You have caliphs that are in different areas of the country. And when it becomes necessary for a national policy, then they would possibly come together via telephone or in person, and they come together and they have like a religious council, simple as that. And they would come up with whatever procedure or policy. It's like before I had this meeting, not only did I get the okay of Shasab or Sheikh, I I've talked to some of the Khalifas and some of the elders. Some of the elders don't have titles next to their name, but they're still elders and they still sit on the council. It's just like the Indian chiefs, you know, you have Chief Sitting Cloud or Big Bull or whatever, powwow. They have a powwow. So sometimes we can do it physically, sometimes we have to do it over the phone, sometimes we have to do it with email. And then we will come forth with whatever it is that we think how we this situation. And they, you know, they asked me, as I said, they asked me, do you have a lawyer? Do you have these other things? You know, these were concerns. And I told them, well, we had already established a relationship, so I didn't really think that we would need that because I'll stand by that if I can't answer a question that I won't, you know, and I won't give a false answer. If I don't have an answer, I'll find out what that answer is and get back to you. But the consensus of opinion was that this was something that was good. So then that's all I needed. Actually, I didn't need anything after Sheikh had said to open a dialogue. I didn't need anything then, but out of a dab or etiquette, then it's necessary that I let them know because they are elders and let them know what it is that I'm doing.
When you say them, are they all at Hancock or?
No, they're all over right now.
Can you give us an idea of how many there are and who they are and where they are?
I'll give you a list. I'll provide you with a list. That'll be the easier way to do it. Okay?
Are they on other lands and lands
yes,
or
yes,
not necessarily?
Yes. In fact, when we did 60 Minutes, there was Khalifa Ali Abdul Rashid. He was there in 60 Minutes. He was mentioned. That's where he is.
South Carolina.
South Carolina, right. You're on one.
I'm fine.
Okay, so you have him here. What happened is most of the elders of MOA, not most of them, but the greatest concentration of elders in MOA are right here in Islamberg. Okay, so you don't need any particular, most times any particular number to come to a conclusion. If you have 3 or 4, then that's fine. You get a hold of them. If you can get on the telephone and get a hold of another one, or email another one, or do a conference call, then you do that. To be honest with you, we don't have that many decisions that we have to make. To be honest, and that's all honest.
So who's in charge of Miramonte right now?
Miramonte, you have Amir Uthman. He's an Amir. Uthman, that's his name, Amir Uthman.
What happened to Sully before?
Well, everybody's around. Nobody has a permanent position in this, all right? I've had almost every title that you can imagine, okay? Whatever the need is for the Jamaat, then it's determined. Our Sheikh would determine, depending on what he has for someone to do, for this individual's involved in this. You have Khalifas that have the title Khalifa, but are not directly involved in administration. They're just Khalifas. My role is that if Sheikh calls me and says, do the 60, he did that. You know, he said for me to handle or be a part of the team that was handling the 60 Minutes programming. So I became a part of their team. As long as I was dealing in that arena, then if you're looking about authority, if you're talking about authority, then I had some authority to make sure that program, you know, turned out the way it was supposed to turn out. I was also given leeway to deal with this, all right? So I have the authority to deal within the realm of, you know, of this gathering right here. You understand? But tomorrow I might not have that. Tomorrow I might not be the spokesperson. I might be dealing with something else. You see, there's nothing etched in stone that says that this individual, because he has a title or because he's in this area, that he will be dealing with this. He might deal with this today, tomorrow he'll be dealing with something else. At one time, Usman was dealing, and just an example since you brought that up, he was dealing with New York. He was dealing with the development of the New York land. But there was a need for him to go to California, which is another huge piece of land that's there, you know, to help them with their situation and with his energies and zeal. So he was sent out there. Simple as that. Tomorrow he might be in Texas. Or he might be in South Carolina. You might find Ali Rashid in California. If they need me in California, then I'll get a call to go to California. And if it's something that I have to do, then I'll be on a plane going to California to help them in whatever it is that they need. If they're doing, and they're talking about doing something similar there to what is happening here, they said, we might want you to come out. I said, well, if you want me to come out, all I need is permission to come out. And the council says, okay, you have the permission to go, then I go. I do my work, and then I come back.
I think it would be good to have a list of leadership like that.
Okay, we'll provide
and the identity of persons to contact as well.
Oh yeah, well, on each parcel of land, this is something that Steve had already spoken about. We'll give you the contact persons, and vice versa. We'll get the contact persons from yourselves, so that in the event that any situation arises that needs immediate attention, you'll know who to go to. You won't have to go, you know, you won't have to fish for it. In other words, you'll have telephone numbers, you'll have addresses and contacts, and so forth and so on, to facilitate whatever it is that you have to do.
Phil?
We're here because we're trying to understand, I guess, the culture of Islam, culture of Illinois.
But I think in law enforcement, we also have a culture. And I think kind of some of the misunderstanding that we have, and you kind of touched on it because you said you haven't walked a mile in my shoes. I think it's foreign to us, especially people in this room, especially people, most people I know, to think of you being in jeopardy by our presence there.
Yeah, I can understand.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes.
And I think that's important for you to understand.
We view ourselves as a good guy.
Well,
yeah.
I already admitted to you that John Wayne was my hero.
Yeah.
All right, he wore a white hat.
Well, we're John Wayne. We're all the John Wayne here.
Okay. No, I understand that, and I'm not doubting that. You know, but sometimes you need a surety. If you've been through, and I didn't say walk a mile in my,
No, yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I was just trying to get a point, and the point was that there is skepticism. Just like you have skepticism or premonitions about us, then we have the same about you. Now, it's not about whether you take the first step or I take the first step. The point is that we both have to meet somewhere. We said that this is not the parallel. This is not Korea. This is not a parallel right here. It's just a space. And whether you take a small step or I take a big step, as long as that space is narrow, you understand that we've accomplished something. You understand? And this is the first. I've never seen so many law enforcement except in the St. Patrick's Day parade. But you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, one more quick question, then I won't bother you anymore.
I don't believe that.
I can tell from the way you speak of your shape, you personally and organizationally, you guys are very, very devoted to him.
Yes.
If at some point in the future, he should decide that the United States is an enemy, where are your guys' loyalties going to lie?
I don't have a clue. Steve asked me this question before. He asked me this question before.
Well, you said you're
let me finish.
and Muslims.
Yeah, let me just finish this. Everything is based on Islamic law. Okay? Islamic law is very clear. It's not circumstantial. You understand? One of the things that, if you didn't see the 60 Minutes, but
no.
if you get a chance, in fact, we're supposed to get a copy of it, and if necessary, they're giving us permission to play it without the FBI saying that, we bootleg. Yeah. All right, but you need to listen.
We're big on that.
Because he said that. And at the end, one of the last statements that he made, he said, why would I tell them to do something against the United States? He said, where are they going to go? He told me when I first met him, and we were talking about martyrdom, because that was back there with Khomeini also, all right? And he said, it's easy to become a martyr. He said, all you have to do is grab a weapon and run in the street. You could become a martyr in a second. He said, it's much more difficult to stay and have an impact, to live and to improve. He said, that's much more difficult. So that's the kind of shape that he is. You understand? He's just the opposite of what people have depicted him. And this was years ago, before the World Trade Center and everything else. That's what he told us. Because there were people around there that, we want to call them space cadets. People were coming from everywhere. Okay? They had all kind of premonitions. They thought that they were going to take over the world, so forth and so on. A lot of those people we began pushing away then. Okay? And basically, we don't have anybody that I know of that has that kind of thought. Okay? I don't know anybody that wants to do anything to harm the United States. You understand? And I know that my sheikh doesn't want anything to happen to the United States.
In viewing the nuts and bolts of law enforcement,
Okay.
you were talking about your females in the veil.
Right.
Is there something that would make it easier for us? Can you explain some of the nuts and bolts of your daily lives that, like if I arrested you and said, okay, I got to take a mug shot, you take your hat off, are you allowed to?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
But you'd never have to do that.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Or you pray 5 times a day. At the times where we're not going to be able to get you, or if someone was going to go pray, you'd have to say, no, you can't talk to them right now, and we should understand, which would make it easier.
Well,
That's question number
you're
one.
doing excellent.
Okay. Number 2 is, you said that if anything ever endangered your village, you would ask that person to leave.
That's right.
It's easier to hide in the forest, so that if somebody was fanatical in a Muslim sense, and they were a danger to the United States or people in general, and they came there because they look like you more than they look like me, so it's easier for them to just stay there for a while, and your religion says accept them for a period of time. You realize that they are very fundamental and they could be a danger. So they risk your security, you ask them to leave.
Right.
But you also don't believe in circumstantial evidence. It's your feeling. Because it's circumstantial, would you drop the dime on them and say, this is this person, this is the car he's driving, and he is very dangerous?
isn't this the same question that you asked me?
My question to Steve was, let's suppose 3 individuals who are Muslim, clearly not American, drove into the property, identified as Muslims, nice, prayed in your mosque, and by the way, we need to stay a couple days. And in view of the religion and the practices, yes, please, we feed you, we house you, you pray, and during the course of events, they drop a piece of paper that has on it directions to Washington, D.C., and itemized steps to take to blow up the Capitol building. Then they leave. My question to Steve is there anything in this religion, either in Islam or in the practice that MOA, form of MOA practice, which I don't think is any different in Islam, but is there anything prohibits them from calling the FBI and saying, God, there's a terrorist here. He's been staying here. We've been giving him comfort, but we've just found out. And your answer?
What is it?
What's your answer?
My first answer is, first thing I would think is they are agents provocateurs, setting us up for the big, see.
Well,
No, that's how I would feel.
Okay.
And that feeling that they were agent provocateurs setting us up, yes. Yes, they
Well, my question is, let's say you didn't think that, and it is clearly
I would think that we are.
In all the World Trade Center bombings and everything else, there's always been an agent provocateur. From the 60s, there were agent
the answer you gave me, I think.
You see somebody's
What would you do?
My situation is,
Believe he's a threat. No, there's no question they're a threat.
what I said to Steve, because I wasn't ready for that, and like I said in the very beginning, that I'm not going to make up an answer for you. I said to him, the first thing I said to him, I said, I hope I'm never in that situation. Is that what I said to you? I said, I hope I'm never in that situation, and I don't know actually what it is that I would do. That's what I told him. I said that there's an element involved in this. First of all, I don't think you'll be able to get any clergy to say what they would actually do in a situation. That's that thing. And even when I was working in the chaplaincy within the prison, the same kind of thing came up on the level that if you knew somebody was planning something against the COs or something of this nature, what would you do? There are a lot of discrete ways to handle situations. And I have to believe, right, that in a situation, if you were in that situation, and let's say we'll make it a little bit more sensitive, it was somebody in your family, all right? Is everybody so gun-ho that automatically that they would do ABC, or would they try to find a way to handle it so that the situation that doesn't take place? I'm just asking you, because we're dealing with hypotheticals. So hypothetical for me is hypothetical for you. It's your brother that you love dearly, and he's getting ready to do something that's crazy. What would you do? How would you handle it? You can say that I'll follow this part of the manual, but you don't really know if you will. That's why I pray that I'm never in that situation, because I never have to make that choice. But if it comes to the loss of lives of innocent men, women, and children, Islam does not condone that at all. Would I say that on camera, which could alienate me from people who don't understand what I'm saying or try to read into what I'm saying? No, I'm not going to say that on camera. Okay? But I will tell you that Islam does not condone, nowhere in the Holy Quran or in the Hadiths or the traditions or in Islamic law does it condone the innocent or the killing of the innocent men, women, and children, and nowhere does it condone suicidal bombings, because I think that's probably where it's coming to. I just heard something on the radio. They said, well, if they have it in Israel, then it might be in the United States. Nowhere does it condone suicidal bombings and so forth and so on. And my sheikh has told me that. My sheikh has told me that. So if there was any question about it in my mind, he has been emphatic about it, and that's recent that he has said that there is no place in the Holy Quran or the traditions that say suicidal bombings is a part of Islam. In fact, he recited a tradition to me where one of the companions was in jihad, which is war, and he was mortally wounded. But at the time that he was wounded, he had fought like a champion. He had fought like a champion, all right? And he fell from his wounds. And the wounds, were overcoming him. And the people looked at him and said, they were praising him and said, this man, he has such valor. The way he handled his sword. He did this, he did that. You understand? And he's definitely going to be a martyr. But what happened is the individual could not deal with the pain. So he took his life. And when he took his life, the Holy Rasul, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, said he will go to hell.
Your your response to me then, Steve, if I remember, was, after thought, and you said just what you just said, I don't know what I do, but on reflection and precedent for me, and I think Tom was there, was that I think I'd take an anonymous call.
I said that could be. Yeah, I said that could be. Okay.
And I said, does your religion prohibit you? Is it because of some religious? And you said, no. You said it was because we don't have a trust.
No, I said to you also, if you recall, I went into the aspect of circumstance.
That's important, because as law enforcement, again, our duty is to find out who's a threat and where are they, especially in post 911. And if there's a group, not MOA necessarily, but MOA, maybe, if there's a group where somebody who is not American come into the country and blend in and kind of exist in that group, not because they agree with them, but simply because they just don't have that relationship with law enforcement to call them, like a lot of groups would. Then that's a concern of ours, and that's something we need to know where we stand with it, because we're only as good as the help we get. We're only as good. And I've learned in the years I work cases is if you want to know something, you got to go ask somebody. Sitting around with your buddies around the coffee pot and law enforcement in a SWAT room, don't cut it. You just got to go out and ask somebody. And so, we need to come to you and ask questions and hopefully get a straight answer, or even better, when dangerous situations arise. I'm not talking about petty crime, but especially when it involves terrorism and threats against the country, that groups like yourselves in the Muslim community, because that's the threat of the day, we can have some kind of assurance you're going to call us and say, hey, anonymously or whatever, and say, I think we've got a problem with this guy. Here's where he is at. This is who he is, and we take it from there. So, and that's kind of where we're coming from. Kind of we get right down to the trust of it.
You just witnessed up here my answer and then his answer. And this is what he was speaking about before about Majali. It might not be, his answer might not be totally on him. Or my answer might not be totally on us until we sit down and discuss this topic as to what, we're going to formulate to do. So you're even within law,
your leadership council, your people,
even within law enforcement,
take that back and say, okay, what if this happens? This is a question from law enforcement. We need to address it.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Well, that would be one of the things. But the other thing is you're talking about a position that MOA takes, or you're talking about the position that individuals take. You see what I'm saying? Again,
those two different issues there. You're right.
Well, when your religion make you take a certain position if you're...
Well, that's one of the points that I was trying to tell you with the position that Sheikh took, because that's the position that I would have to take. And I'm telling you, and at times, you have to be able to read between the lines. Now, let's be honest with it. I've already told you that my Sheikh is emphatic.
He does not condone it.
He does not condone it. You understand what I'm saying?
That means you will not condone it.
Me, I will not condone it.
That's what the next step is. The next step is, would you take the...
Are you questioning me about me, or are you questioning me about him?
Well, that's you first. Would you take, and I think that's...
Would
you take the positive step of, obviously, something bad's going to happen if I don't call somebody. I mean, not just one person's going to get killed, but...
Let's make it personal. I said already, if it's one person as opposed to 1,000 or 2,000, if you kill one, it's as though you killed all of mankind. Okay? The aspect of a position of MOA per se, we haven't sat down and discussed that position.
But would you, as a result of this, would you?
Oh yeah, I would. But what I'm saying is that when we were talking, you were saying me.
That's right.
All right, and I was trying to express again, as I said before, the sensitivity of a situation. Okay? And the sensitivity of a situation is such that, number one, I told you in Islamic law, I said, with the same situation, I explained that you would have to, you understand, have proof, positive proof, that this individual was going to do such and such. I could not use circumstantial evidence. Okay. And I told you at that time, if I had some kind of feeling or inclination, I said then maybe a situation would develop. But I could not say, and I would not say that this is exactly what I'm going to do, or this or that, or how I'm going to do it, as an individual. Okay, as an organization, if this is the question that you want us to take back to the council, then we'll do that. We don't have a problem with that. But, and this is the reality, as much as we sit here, as much training as we've had in any situation, I asked an individual who was involved in law enforcement one time, and And I was asking him, how do you deal with a situation, like a firefight, you get into a shootout? He said, one time you might behave like a hero. You understand, no fear, no this, no that. The next time you can't even squeeze off a round. He said, the next time you can't squeeze off a round. So that was enough for me to understand that in a crisis situation, yeah, we can sit down and talk about what the ideal way is or what the patriotic way is, but when the reality hits, the thing that I'm going to fall back on is the fact that Islam does not condone the killing of men, women, and children. It does not condone suicidal bombings.
Therefore, though, would you have a moral imperative to reach out and help?
I'm telling you what Islam says.
Right. So you would.
I'm telling you what my principles are.
Right.
Okay? And I will function accordingly to make sure that that does not happen in my knowledge.
Well, I think we need to wrap it up, because
We're quick. Let's take out the emotionally charged terrorism here.
Okay.
What I'm wondering, what if you have a number of people that live up in your area, and what if one of your people, God forbid, does some heinous crime against one of your other members within your? Are you going to reach out to law enforcement, or are you going to be a self-contained community and try to handle it your way?
I want you
like a murder.
How about both?
Okay. So you guys would make the call, and you would cooperate with our investigation about what our duties would be, to try to investigate a crime.
we've been at it for 3 hours, and we have high-ranking people in the police department have lots of paperwork to get back to. I'm sure.
Are they getting paid for this, or did they come voluntarily?
They're probably the payroll.
Public service.
And I guess, we all will take something away from this positive. I think, see, if, that's an important issue for us.
No, I understand.
And I think if that's something that you
I
have
wasn't
discussed,
sincere when I say we can discuss
I
it, we
think
can get
that's
back,
excellent.
and
we can have further discussions about it as what your specific discussions were, because, again, we can't do it alone. We need help from people, right? We need help from the Muslim community if the threat against the United States are people that are Muslim.
We recognize the reason why the attention is, drawn towards us. That was spoken of earlier, and we can understand that. But at the same time, in my parting words is, and I have to say that because we're looking for parity. Remember, that's all we're looking for is parity. What would the minister or the priest or any other person of the cloth, because I consider myself a person of the cloth, even though there's no priesthood, but because of the responsibilities that I have from time to time. What would you expect of them? What are their responses to this type of situation? Because again, like you're talking about the priest who might know all kinds of things, but because of the relationship that he has with the parent, the members of the church, and the confiding aspect that they have, how far would he go? You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I'm asking for, the parity. So you look at a Muslim, the way I handle it should not be any different than the way the priest handles it, or the minister handles it, or any good patriotic handles it.
I want to thank you very much. It's been very enlightening, but also courageous on your part.
The thing
you
is,
come in a room with a bunch of people carrying guns and hold them spellbound for 3 hours.
the whole thing.
No, I'm serious.
I asked for help.
It's great.
I asked for
It's
help.
great. I really thank you very much, and I think hopefully, we can continue this either. If anybody has questions, please give them to us. Follow-up stuff, shoot them over to the seat. We've been talking like almost, certainly every week, a couple of times.
I'm trying to
different issues. I want to thank everybody for coming, and if there's anything we can do here in our age, don't be afraid to ask. Thank you very much this evening.
I just want to say, even the skeptics, whoever they are, you understand, they can still call me. All right? And we can still discuss it. All right?
If anybody would like to stay around.
Sure, I'm not going anywhere.
Come on, man.
Yeah, we'll,
You're married. And I have a page.